como dice el Jimmy. Si te va a dar la perreta, chivichana, cantampleta. Mira lo que te va a pasar, mira lo que te voy a hacer. Viste que conmigo no es fácil, tú tienes que hacer un papel. Lo que te va a pasar, lo que te voy a hacer. Viste que conmigo no es fácil, tienes que hacer un papel. Mira lo que te va a pasar, mira lo que te voy a hacer. Viste que conmigo no es fácil, tú tienes que hacer un papel. Lo que te va a pasar, lo que te voy a hacer. Viste que conmigo no es fácil, tienes que hacer un papel. De Camagüey pa' La Habana, de La Habana pa' Camagüey. Usted a 50 kilómetros y nosotros al 100. Let's Revolution, Factory Music, Estrella y ¿dónde está?
Hello and welcome to the Media Day for the WSL GT3 United States Series. This is a last chance opportunity for all the drivers to make sure they're in the proper splits, of which there are three. There's the Pro-Am, and of course, as always, the Am. So 3 different categories for all these drivers just to basically make sure the best racing possible can be accomplished throughout the entire field. Tonight we're at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, home of course, the 24 Hours of Spa and the Belgian Grand Prix. Once a year, the Formula One circuit comes here. It's probably one of the biggest races. It's a very historic venue. It, in fact, celebrated its 100th birthday about 2 years ago in 2021. I'm Austin Belke, joined by John Hine in the booth with Daniel Costello behind the scenes in the production trailer. And John, I couldn't really think of a better place to start off the season.
No, neither could I. This is such a historic track, a lot of opportunity for passing, great braking zones, a lot of great opportunities to see some really good racing and overtakes. And I bet you the drivers are happy this is where they're starting too.
Yeah, of course, I couldn't imagine just a better place to shake down a car. These drivers really only have a couple more days, I believe, until the 19th of March, so about 4 days from now, to see if they really want to go through and change which car they'd like to race for this season. Of course, you have the very long straights that Spa offers. It's got some very, very fast-flowing corners. And then you also have the more technical bits. You've got turn one, that fast, you can have a lot of the fast corners, and then in turn one, of course, very slow, very tight corners. Even before the start-finish line, lots of slow corners, very fast ones as well. Perfect place to shake down a car. And as always, WSL are delighted to bring back Race Anywhere and Go for the Gap, as well as retain the IMB Racewear as one of the sponsors.
Yeah, and this track, like you touched on it, man, this is a great track to start because it's got something for everything. You got high-speed straights, you've got very technical corners. There's even one right to the chicane. You're going 160. You got to get that car down to about 35 to get through that chicane. Great braking zones. This is going to be an outstanding shakedown for these guys. They're going to be able to test all points of their car through a lap here.
Yeah, and especially for all these drivers, there's 8 different cars that they can choose from. We're really spoiled for choice in terms of which car you want to join. There's Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, BMW. There's so many opportunities for you to go in and pick a car. It can be whatever one looks the best, whichever one drives the best, whichever one sounds the best. There's so many different variations these drivers can have to choose which car they want to drive. There's Porsches. I mean, really, if you think of what GT3 racing is all about, especially here in iRacing, this league is certainly going to exemplify that.
Yeah, and the choice too with cars, each one of them have their own characteristics. You've got some that will, get up out of the corner. The torque off the corner will be a little better. You got some that probably get down the straightaways a little bit faster. From the handling sections, you got some. So every car has pros and cons to it. So you've got to really pick the car that suits your driving style, and that's what these guys are hoping to do here today.
Of course, all the drivers right now out on track are qualifying. They have 10 minutes to put down 2 laps, the fastest 2, hopefully, that they can put down. Looking right here, Matthew Plaisance in the number 9 car. He's choosing a Ferrari for right now, the ERS by Skyline Designs. And John, qualifying a lap at Spa, I mean, this track is absolutely just ginormous. It's 4.35 miles. You have 21 turns. There's a lot of opportunities to really put down a flyer lap, but there's also a lot of opportunities, 21 turns, to mess it up. And if you put a wheel wrong in some areas of this track, you're really going to pay for it.
Yeah, and not only messing up in the corner, but getting out of the corner with these long, opportunities, these long front stretches and back stretches and all these areas. If you get off these corners wrong, the only thing you're doing is losing time down each one of these long straightaways.
Right now, the man up at the front of the field, fastest person on the timesheets, is Harry Wills. And if I recall correctly, he won earlier today in the EU Series over Callum Beaumont by only 0.035 seconds, so 35 one-thousandths of a second he won by. So an extremely close race earlier today. Hopefully we're in store for that exact same thing as we go forward here. This is a view phenomenal that we can have split screen here. We can have dual views. You have, of course, Matthew Plaisance from the TV camera, and then we also have an onboard one just a little bit over to driver's right. We're looking basically maybe 6 inches to the right of his right shoulder. So this is a phenomenal view of what exactly he's seeing inside the cockpit of that race car.
Yeah, and as he makes his way around, we can see exactly what he's doing in the car, what lines he's taking and everything else, and how much wheel he's putting in the middle of these corners. Great camera view here, and it's just helps everybody kind of get themselves in the car and get them in the mood for this race here tonight, for sure.
You can see extremely slow on that wheel. I shouldn't say slow, I should say smooth. It's often the slower a lap looks, the faster it is. Lots of drivers have said that over the years. If you look fast over the course of a lap, it's probably going to be very slow because you're just all over the place. You got Kai Dalzell in second place right now, Jeremy Littleton. You recognize a lot of names, of course, if you are familiar with the WSL leagues. I recognize a lot of these ones, having done several series for this league. Lots of guys like Wills, Littleton, Bass, Pierce, Scott, Timms, lots of guys. The mainstays in this league. Here's Matthew Poissant completing his second lap there. I'm not quite sure if that was faster for him currently. He's sitting about 21st on the leaderboard. This is looking at Taylor Lane, driver number 32 car, choosing the Audi for right now. Ford, one of the drivers that, of course, has a little onboard camera, we should say, or driver cam. Drivers were able to join a Zoom call with a special link, and we can show them, of course, over the course of a lap. And you can see really getting after it, John, there out of the little bus stop chicane.
Absolutely. You see a little head lean and everything else. And yeah, sim racing has come so far. You find yourself leaning into corners, leaning out of corners, and the only thing really missing is the G-force is not throwing you out of these corners. But man, I tell you, a lot of fun to drive these cars, a lot of fun to work around this track, and you can see them pretty busy inside that car there when we had them. But we got James Howard here in the Reese's. Now that's going to make me want some those Easter eggs that they come out with, the Reese's Easter eggs.
John, you took the words right out of my mouth. I love how much fun these guys all have with designing their paint schemes each and every season. Sometimes they design them. Sometimes you kind of just pull it off trading paints, and it works just fine. Andrew Hewitt here, the number 7 car, choosing the Porsche for right now, this HRL team. So going into turn 1 there, it looks like he just got done completing his lap there. Still Harry Wills up at the top of the timing sheets of the 2:16.263, fastest lap of anyone else so far. He's got about a 0.5 of a second gap there back to Kai Dalzell. And from then on out, it's an extremely close field from pretty much, third place on back to, I'm going to say, maybe 14th. You've got just a couple tenths separating each and every driver, sometimes hundredths or thousandths of a second between all those. You've only got about 45 seconds left in qualifying. So, John, if you haven't already wrapped up your 2 laps, you're really hoping you're kind of coming out of turns, maybe 16 or 17 right about now. And it looks like everybody has completed their 2 laps.
Yeah, good to get them in and be able to park it and catch your breath. I mean, I'm sure, getting through here and pushing it, you can hold your breath in some of these corners just trying to get through them and whatnot. So good job for everybody, get their laps completed, and we get to go racing here shortly.
Yeah, while we're waiting to go racing, why don't we fill a little bit of time so we don't have to do it later and interrupt the action. I'd like to thank one of our sponsors for today, Race Anywhere. They're a major distributor of sim racing products based in the UK, specializing in some of the highest quality sim racing brands such as ProSimU, GSI, OBP, etc. Seriously, check them out. We'd like to thank them for helping support the series. And John, as we finally get about 6 seconds left here, starting to see all the cars getting closer and closer to gridding up, this the time where you start to have those butterflies in your stomach. So we now go into 10 minutes of warm-up here to make sure all these guys, you've had time to go out in the qualifying setup. This is the time to make sure your race setup is just about finally tuned in. Make sure you're ready to go racing for this first off 25-minute sprint.
Yeah, and these guys will have little tweaks between the race set, obviously, than their Q set. So, but the thing is too, right now, there's some guys in the field that probably didn't get the qualifying time that they would like to. So, they're a little nervous about, okay, did I miss something or whatever the case might be. And switching over that race set, this 10 minutes can prove invaluable for those guys.
Yeah, maybe especially this is somewhere where you say, well, you get into this actual sim, the race here, and you see, the track temperature is a couple of degrees higher. Maybe there's a lot more wind coming out of a certain corner, and that can certainly start to play tricks on you at certain parts of the racetrack because this place is so large. It's got so many different corners. If the winds are higher than you expect, you see one driver sliding there was Eric Papineau. They're just down the Blanchemont straightaway. Looking at Andrew Hewitt here in the 7 Porsche. So yeah, you can do a lot of things to kind of play with what you're dealing with here behind the wheel of the race car. Maybe you fine tune some things. Maybe just make sure you get a little bit more practice in. I mean, these guys are absolutely on the absolute limit of grip and control for these race cars.
Yeah, and to give anybody an idea of just how massive this track is, anybody that's watched Formula One over the years knows that parts of this track, it can be raining, other parts it can be bone dry, and this track actually has different weather in different parts of the track, so it encompasses a heck of an elevation change and just massive area too. So this is actually on one of my bucket list tracks to go to.
Yeah, mine as well. It's such a historic venue too. It's whether you come here for the Spa 24-hour race, the Belgian Grand Prix, or anywhere in between. There's almost always a race going on here at Spa, and it's just such a great place. Even if there isn't racing, if you're in the area, even within the country, I would say definitely on my bucket list at least to come here. And I think this is definitely, if you're a race fan, put this on the calendar if you are going to be in the area to at least stop by Spa and say you went here. Of course, this racetrack has gone through so many changes over the years. It used to be much more wide open, and then they started to do some certain things for safety and change the layout. It's just really a story, in my opinion, of how racing has evolved over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Parts of this track used to be back roads and stuff like that. So racing itself has come a long way. But, you know, the neat thing about that I like coming here with these cars, though, is, yeah, they don't have the downforce of the F1 cars. So they're not, you know, going through all rouge at, you know, an ungodly amount of pace. But you've actually got to get up on the wheel and get these cars and drive them. And that's going to be the challenge here. One of the things that has changed since last fall, which I'm sure these guys have all done their due diligence and got laps in, but tire wear is now a little bit different. The tires will wear out a little bit quicker. Your out laps and stuff like that coming out of the pits, those are going to be crucial. And some of these high-speed turns and braking sections are going to be very interesting post-pit stops and start of the race.
Yeah, I continue to see a lot of drivers spinning out. One of them was a Christian Marglione. Looking here, this is one driver, the driver number 27 car, Bruce Jackson from Illinois. It's always interesting to see what different drivers have compared to setups or even the background of their rooms. You can see he's currently just really getting after this car, trying to put it into practice here, choosing the BMW for this media day. We'll see if he continues to choose it. So he now goes into the too fast. These left-handers up here, John, they're so fast and there's so little error. Room for margin here, you know, margin for error, as they say, because if you just get a little bit of a 1x, the sim can actually punish you pretty hard, even if you go out of the, you know, limits of the track, and you would say, well, technically, I really shouldn't be punished because I added feet to the lap. iRacing doesn't care. They've been really smart, especially at this track. This was one of the first places that they kind of instituted those Formula One, the more rigid guidelines to say, oh, if you overstep the boundaries of the track, you're going to have to pay for that. Schiefer Lungam, this place right here, this fast right-hander, before you go down this long, you call it a backstretch, it's got this large kick in it.
It does, and I was in these cars ghosting with these guys just a little bit earlier, and that's a term here for iRacers that you go into the session and they can't see me, but I can drive around with them, and man, I was flat out through there with the set that I put in it. So yeah, lots of speed, but right here is where you're going 160, and that chicane, you've got to get it down to 100 or down to 35 mile an hour in a very short period of time. That is going to be one of the passing zones that I think could be crucial to tonight's race.
Certainly will. It's always an opportunity to see who is the last of the late breakers. And that, of course, lends it to one of the things you talked about at the top of the broadcast, John. All these different cars give a lot of different drivers different opportunities to be the last one to put the brakes on, especially for that chicane, even down until the source, the turn one, that very, very slow, hard right-hander, almost a hairpin, as they say. Look at that Brandon Melling here. You can see him on the right side again. Very phenomenal, this whole picture-in-picture deal. You can see what's going on in real time and see him. Look at him. You know, that kind of that deadpan stare to the screen. You can see just how focused he is. You really do have to be focused if you want to bring these cars around here at any sort of a competitive speed.
Yeah, losing concentration, it's not all that much different than what real world or the real world counterparts do. You know, you've got to be hyper focused on what you're doing, not only making sure you're hitting the apexes just right, but you also have to keep an eye focused up the track because you know something can happen up in front of you that you're going to have to react to pretty quick. So a lot going on here for these guys here tonight.
Yeah, and I continue to see a lot of drivers. I'm not going to say overstepping the boundaries of grip by a lot, but even just a small margin can send you kind of spiraling out of control. I see a lot of lazy spins from these guys, and sort of the setups that you end up taking to Spa are kind of a key to that because you want to have the least amount of downforce on the car as possible so that you can absolutely rocket down the straightaways. But you need to make sure you keep enough bolted on there that the car is glued to the ground in the corner. So a lot of these cars, oftentimes you'll see them on the exit of the corner start to go for a lazy spin. And when I say lazy spin, it's a very slow spin, and the drivers know that they're in it, but the car is incredibly hard to save. 90% of the time, you don't save the car, you just wait for the spin to finish and hope that you don't nose it into the tires.
Yeah, and what's nice though is that if they're, you know, as close as what they were in the earlier race today, you know, the guy that's trailing the guy that gets in trouble usually can see that that guy's getting in trouble before they even know they're getting in trouble. So they do have a little advantage to have some wreck avoidance in those cases. So, you know, but there's not a whole lot of room to avoid here. I mean, this is a fairly narrow circuit in a lot of places out here.
Yeah, it certainly is. You can go about 4 or 5 cars wide if you were basically a wing mirror to wing mirror or door mirror, as they say here in the GT3 cars. But, you know, when you get down to actually racing one another, this track is probably one of the most narrow on the calendar that we're going to be going to this season. Looking here at Nick Selipautis, driving the number 26 car from Canada. You can see he's another one of the guys carrying our onboard cameras. You can see his monitor wrapping basically all around his face so much you can practically see his black box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, practically almost right next to him, John.
Yeah, and you know that's a neat thing here too about what we do, and you know you've got a lot of different points of views. You know, I race personally in VR, so I've got something over my eyes and whatnot. So a lot of different opportunities, but the cool thing about it is everybody gets to come in and have the same good time and drive these cars. So the points of view might be different, but the racing still is just as good.
Yeah, certainly not. That's what's one of the most intriguing things to me about sim racing is everybody has their own setup. Some people have a single monitor, some people have doubles, some people have triples, some people have an ultra wide, some people are racing on a curved projector screen. You never know what somebody else might be using. You can see Nicholas continue to put down laps. This is a look at Jacob Schneider driving number 81 Porsche. See all the way down there hitting that apex.
I was going to say, I do think I even saw online here somewhere today that Red Bull is selling their 2018 sim that they were using for their cars. I think it was about a cool 100 grand, 200 grand for that thing.
Yeah, pocket change maybe for one of those drivers at home that wants to have a super serious pro-rated sim setup. And if that's you, maybe give Christian Horner a call. Maybe Max Verstappen might be able to hook you up. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo is going to take that thing home to his house. Maybe you can get some practicing in on that.
Yeah, it's going to be so weird seeing Danny Ricciardo in that Red Bull garage here over this year. That's going to take some getting used to. But back to what we got here going on. That wraps up our warm-up here. Looks like we're getting ready now. We finally get to get this show on the road.
Yes, sir. And just a quick reminder for you folks at home, normally we would have 3 different groupings of drivers, so we basically have 1 through 20 about 3 times. But today for this one, we've just gone ahead and grouped all the drivers into one solid field. So rolling off on pole position with a 216-263, Harry Wills. Starting to his outside is Kai Dazell. Jeremy Littleton's going to roll off in the 3rd position, followed by Ethan Bass. In the 4th spot, James Pierce is going to roll off in 5th, followed by Jacob Schneider in 6th. Blake Scott's going to roll off in the 7th position, followed by Daniel Dennison, who starts in 8th. Dean Timms and Alex Murray round out the top 10. Nick Stein almost put down 216.9, hit the curb a little bit, is forced to reckon with a 218.3. He's going to roll off in 11th position, followed by Kyle Smith in 12th. Lucas Souza is going to roll off in 13th, followed by James Howard in 14th, and Taylor Lane rounds out the top half of your starting grid in 15th position, John.
Yeah, next to him in 16th will be Marcelo Magnini. Next row will be Braden Melling and Andrew Hugson. Starting in 19th will be John Trainer, and next to him will be Nicholas Salaputos. Starting 21st is going to be Bruce Jackson, and then next to him will be Cristiano Malani. Starting 23rd will be Christopher Johnson, and next to him will be Aaron Beaver. And then starting in 25th will be Matthew Plassant. Next to him will be Eric Papineau. John Casey will be in the inside of the next row there in 27th. 28th will be Greg Brockway. And rounding out your field here tonight is going to be Justin Rustow and Andrew Hewitt.
Thanks, John. It looks like for right now, Harry Wills is going to elect to start on the pit lane, so he will not be the driver bringing the field to green. It's going to be Kai Dalzell, who would have rolled off in 2nd position. Instead, he's the sole man on the front row. iRacing pace car goes and pulls itself down pit road, waiting for the green here. Waiting. It's on Kai as to when he wants to start this race. Waiting for these drivers to come around. It's going to be the GT start, not quite where the Formula One cars do it. So out of this next corner is where we're going to go green flag racing. Waiting for Kai to take the start finish line here as he gets closer and closer to it. Waiting for the green flag. Flag finally out for iRacing. You can see Kai and Jeremy Littleton both decide to put their feet on the loud pedal of these race cars. Now up here through Eau Rouge, the very fastest complex of corners on this whole track, and then Radion as they continue to go up the hill. Now descending down the Kemmel Straight here into Lake Com.
And it looked like there was a massive shunt back in the field there. I saw a couple cars go head on into the wall as they continue going down the sprint stretch here, or one of these long straightaways, and into another tight corner.
Getting word that was Sergeant Nick Steibner, did I hear there from our producer Daniel, telling us one of the cars that went into the wall. Right now it's Kai Dalzell. He's going to take the point here in his Lamborghini. It's 3 Lamborghinis there up at the top of the field. Then we have our first Ferrari and then our first BMW of the race. You can see them continuing to go through these next couple of sets of corners. Bruxelles now for Speaker's Corner before they get down to Double Gosh. Lots of guys all over the place here, using all the runoff as possible, trying not, though, to get those 1Xs.
Well, remember, I touched on it here with the tires. These guys, there goes way wide here. You kind of tiptoe this first lap, get those tires under you, then you can really go racing them.
First 2i battle we see. Interesting to see one of the Ford GT's GT3 cars out there. Most people don't really give this car a try. They say it's too slow, it's too outdated, but you can see one of the drivers out there giving it a try. I believe that's James Pierce. Really hard to tell quite who that is. So many cars out there, lots of new faces and new places, new paint schemes. Everybody having to get used to what each other is driving. Up at the front of the field, though, battle for the lead. You got Jeremy Littleton all the way on the back of Kai Dalzell. Be interesting to see which driver comes out on top. It's so many opportunities for slipstream here, John.
Yeah, it is. And, we got one around.
I think BMW, I believe that's Jeremy Littleton. Yeah, that was a whale of a save there. Not many times do you see that happen there, that a driver can go that sideways, especially in that area of the track, and save it. Not many times do you see somebody come back from the slide like that and wash them on.
Yeah, I was in a dirt sprint car last night, and that's how sideways I was, and that was on dirt.
Yeah, those cars are made to go that sideways all the time, not necessarily these GT3 race cars. There was somebody else going a little bit sideways there out of that bus stop chicane before they completed their first lap. We'll have to try to keep a tab on who that was. That's why you saw all that smoke there as the drivers finally came off that corner. Up at the front of the field, still Kai Dalzell, James Pierce in behind him. And then you've got Bass, the third car in line.
And another big incident back up coming out of that corner.
Well, that's a big pile up back there. That's a lot of cars taken out. You can see all the cars now tumbling down the
Oh,
order.
wow.
Many cars facing the wrong direction. That's going to be at least half the field probably. Oh, they're still wrecking.
A lot of trouble here early for a lot of guys. Now, you know, the good news is a lot of time left here in this race. They get to the pits, get everything repaired, but, you know, we got another race here yet tonight, so, you know, their night's just not completely over here. They're going to be able to come back and give it a try again here in a little bit.
And the driver in that Mercedes you saw getting it a little bit sideways there as they headed down the Kemmel Straight continues to get to the wall right now. John Trainer in the number 28 car, so Mercedes Ram, limping that thing, kind of dog tracking it pretty heavily. Lots of suspension damage to that machine. Up at the front of the field, still Kai Dalzell, your current leader. James Pierce tucked in about 2.5, 3/10 of a second behind them, and then rounding out the podium, you have Bass, of course, one of the driver in the Ford GT cars.
And the top three continue to kind of stretch their lead a little bit. You know, right now is a nice time. You can kind of lay back a little bit. You can see where you're better than the guy in front of you. You can figure out where you can get runs and set up a pass without even getting up close to him and even showing your cards at this point.
Yeah, these guys, currently the podium drivers, have about an entire second or 2 seconds at this point back to a Jacob Schneider there in the 4th position in that number 81 Porsche. And John, I want to touch on this too. You know, this is kind of like the Busch Clash, as it were, maybe the Roar before the 24. No points on offer for tonight, basically all bragging rights. We just want to make sure we have all the drivers in the classes that they should be based on time and sort of, you know, talent, at least proficiency in iRacing. So that's why we have this race right here, basically just to prove which one of these guys belongs in each of the classes, the Pro, the Pro-Am, and the Am classes.
Yeah, and that's a neat thing to do. And boy, look at that pit road. There is a lot of cars sitting on pit road right now. Mostly, I'm going to bet from that big incident there. We just saw the last incident there we saw. But, you know, when you see other guys in the pits, that's a good thing, you know, if you're sitting there, because, hey, that means you might be able to pick up some spots if you can get your car repaired and get back out there.
Yeah, 3-wide battle for the lead there. Heading down the Kemmel Straight, all three of our leaders on the podium there were 3 wide as they headed down into Lake Palm. Currently, it's still Kai Dalzell out in front. Ethan Bass tried to make a 3-wide move there. We're going to get a replay of this here just in a moment. This is that big crash that we saw as they go through Rouge and Radion. You're going to see one car start to get sideways, and there's, at this speed, John, there's really no way to check up, especially not when there's that much smoke. You can try to check up, but you can't really stop, and even if you do stop, the driver behind you usually isn't going to have time to check up and avoid you.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about, you know, you got to focus on hitting your marks. Those guys are looking to hit that apex just right. But you, not only do you got to focus kind of right down there in front of you with the cars in front of you, you've got to be looking up down the track a little bit to make sure that it's cleared further down the way. And sometimes that's difficult, especially through corners, high-speed corners like that. And you saw a lot of guys get caught up in that whole thing.
And all the infighting here amongst the 3 drivers on the podium has allowed for Jacob Schneider and Jeremy Littleton to catch up to these guys. The gap from Pierce to Schneider used to be about 2.3, 2.4 seconds. Right now it's down to about 1.5, 1.6 seconds. So all this fighting amongst our top 3 drivers here. So you can see Bash try to shove it up the inside there of Pierce. Not quite close enough. That was Pierce, excuse me, on the inside of Bass. Not quite close enough to complete that pass. But still, you can see all 3 of those drivers. You could put them under a small blanket at this point.
Yeah, and that was a classic case of trying to outbrake somebody, and that's exactly what Bass was trying to do there on Pierce.
Going for another dive bomb there is Pierce, this time on Dalzell. We'll have to see who is the last of the late breakers here, or at least the first one to check up before the single file. You can go 2 wide through here, but it's extremely sketchy. It looks like right now Pierce is going to win out over Dalzell. You can see Bass just really take advantage of that opportunity there. Going now, here comes Jacob Schneider. He's going to have a lot of momentum here heading down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, while those other guys were tossing about there, he really closed that gap in a hurry and has brought himself into the fight here.
Oh, a big moment there out of our old leader Kai Dizel as he tried to make that car slow down there for Lake Com. You see all the drivers kind of slinging their cars through there for right now. So up at the front of the field right now, it's James Pierce taking over that front position. He's got 4 cars though just in behind him. All 4 of these guys though really hungry for this win. No points on offer, but there's a lot of bragging rights involved.
Yeah, that was a pretty nifty move and pretty aggressive there by John Schneider to kind of dive low there and take away that inside braking zone into that corner there. And I think that caught Kyle out a little bit here. But now they're kind of getting stretched out and sorted out just a little bit here. But Schneider doesn't look like he's done and satisfied with second. He's going into third here. Or second, sorry.
Yeah, not satisfied with third indeed. He continues to side his way right now down to the inside of Bass. You see relegating Bass into third, and now looks like Dalzell wants to try and take back over that third position from him. He's been relegated himself to fourth right now. You can tell that Bass really, kind of just Bosch, I would say, one of those last corners, especially these high-speed left-handers there. Schneider absolutely took advantage of that. This time here, heading into the chicane as they go through Blanchemont right now. We'll see what Kai can do. Can he throw out that acre at the last possible second, make a dive down the inside?
Yeah, it looks like he's getting a tow, and I was wondering if he isn't going to try to outbrake him going into the chicane here, but he does not. He stays in line, follows him through the chicane, and out here to where the front stretch will be.
Right now, I can only imagine one person really just loving all this act right now is James Pierce further up the road. He's got about a 1.5 gap back to James Schneider. That's the car in that second place. That's the first Porsche in the field. I'm kind of surprised just how many cars we're seeing here up at the front. Usually, it doesn't matter what car you pick. All the cars are competitive, but some tracks certainly kind of lend their characteristics to that of a certain type of GT3 car. But we've got about 3 different makes here in the top 3, and of course Jeremy Littleton, the next car behind these guys, he's in a Ferrari, I believe. So you got 4 different manufacturers here in the first 5 cars.
Yeah, and look here, we got a possible pass for second place here, looking for an outbraking opportunity, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Ethan Bass shoved that car up the inside there of Jacob Schneider. So move Bass right now into second position. You can see Schneider's right on board here with Kai Dalzell. Schneider continues to look for an over-under opportunity right now as they go into this hard-braking 180-degree corner. This is one of the longest corners on the entire track, John. It feels like it takes so long for these cars, especially if you have an ill-handling race car. That's one of those corners that just seems to take forever.
It does, and it invites you to try to push it, and when you do that, you just lose the nose of your car, and next thing you know, you're out in the marbles there and really lose time. But I was looking at the driver chat a little bit earlier tonight, and you know what, there was some smack talk about Fords, and tell you what, right now Mr. Bass has got that Ford in second.
Yeah, it's one of those cars that's certainly often overlooked because of its age here in the sim. And you can, Ford really hasn't raced a GT3 car in the specs since about 2008, 2010. So this car is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, on the entire platform here for the GT3 racing. I think the only car even close to it in age is that McLaren. And the McLaren is still up there in terms of performance as well. So it really just depends which kind of car each driver is best suited to. Up the road, it's still Pierce has got a 2-second lead this time by with all this infighting behind him. And John, this is one of those places it's easy to catch a guy if you're a little bit faster than him, especially with the slipstream down the straightaway. But the slipstream is only good for about maybe 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's not, what most people will see in NASCAR or IndyCar or Formula One, where you see that massive runs that they get, 4, 5, 6 mile an hour faster than the guy in front of you. It is very subtle, and what you can do with that slipstream, though, is try to get right up to their bumper and then swing out and then try to outbrake them into a corner, and that's really how to use the draft in these cars.
We'll see if either one of these drivers uses the draft right now. So far in the top 5, it's Pierce, Bass, Schneider, Dalzell, Littleton in the top 5. Running out the top 10, Aaron Beaver, Bruce Jackson, Harry Wills, Marcello Magnani, and then Justin Rustow in 10th place in that number 30 car. You can see all these drivers still continuing to go around the track. This is another battle further down through the field. This is Bruce Jackson in the number 27 car, trying to see if he can't hunt down the 2 drivers just up the road from him, Aaron Beaver and Jeremy Littleton. right now Aaron Beaver, the first car on Bruce's hit list, as it were, of cars he'd like to pass. Well, one car going just straight off the track. I believe that was Harry Wills, it looked like. Oh, no, this is Harry Wills right here, so that must have been, it is Marcelo Magnani. He's the one driver that just, it looked like, went straight off the track there. So anyways, back to Harry Wills, all over the rear bumper right now. Oh, Bruce Jackson just went off the corner. The driver in 7th place. It's going to let the two drivers battling with him go by. Harry Wills, it looks like, for sure, and maybe Aaron Beaver.
Yeah, remember Harry started from pit road here, so he's caught the field and is kind of driving up through, and like you touched on earlier, he's already got a win today under his belt.
Yeah, driving the Mercedes AMG GT3 car. Whenever I run the GT3 races, this is always the car I choose. I think it's got the best sound, and I really just like the feeling of a front-engine rear-wheel drive car. You can see Harry right now looking to the inside of Aaron Beaver as they go through to Blanchimont. Aaron's going to give just a little bit of a courtesy lift there for Harry and let Harry on through. You can see the two drivers talking about that over the radio there. We'll shift our attention back to where this action is on the screen. This is for that 3rd position. Looks like Kai Dalzell diving down to the inside there of Jacob Schneider. We'll see if Kai can run down the 2 leaders here. Kai was the driver that took the green flag in the 1st position, but was quickly run down and then passed by the 2 drivers ahead of him on track, James Pierce and Ethan Bass.
Yeah, and this might be a moment now where, we're over 14 minutes into this run, and I have to think now tires are starting to change how you have to drive, where you're braking at, how aggressive in the throttle you are coming out of the corners. So, the guys that have managed their stuff the best through that first part of that run there, that first 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes of a run are really, really going to probably excel here at this last 10 minutes of the race.
Yeah, and for you folks at home, we mentioned it earlier, John did. iRacing has done a lot of changes to the tire models, especially on this GT3 car. No longer can you easily double stint on tires. These tires basically are used up within one single stint. That can be anywhere from about 45 minutes to 50 minutes to maybe even an hour and 10 minutes, just depending on the track and the fuel consumption of your car and how hard you're driving it. So these guys, only 25 minutes, basically half of a fuel run, but these guys are still going to be wishing they had some 4 fresh good years on these things towards the end of this race. And it all depends, John, how much are you turning the wheel in the corner, really how much are you kind of just harping on those brakes, having to engage an anti-lock brake system that these GT3 cars all have.
Yeah, and that's all gonna, like you said, play into that. And if you abuse this stuff, iRacing tire models, I'm telling you, if you really are hard on them early in a run, you pay for it later in the run big time. So the guys that have been, like I said, been the best at kind of taking care of their stuff, you watch here the second half of the race, they're going to have probably a pretty good run up through the field.
Let's just taking another look here at Bruce Jackson, one of our drivers carrying the driver camera, like we mentioned there. Some of the guys joined the Zoom call. We have about 5, 6, maybe 7 different guys right now. Bruce trying to chase down Nicholas Salapautas. I think Nicholas, one of our other drivers with an onboard camera. I might be incorrect on that, but still trying to chase him down. He's got about an 1/8 of a second gap there up to Nicholas. Bruce is running a lot better up through the field there. I believe he was in about the 7th position before having an off-track last lap. And you can see, John, just in that one lap, that little bit of mistake he had basically dropped him about 20 seconds further down the field.
Yeah, that's part of road racing. You got to be careful because if you have an off or contact or something like that, penalties are usually pretty massive, especially in a field that's this tight. Doesn't take a whole lot to go from up front to mid-pack or even further back.
Certainly not looking here at Nicholas Salapautas. I was correct. One of the drivers is Nick that has our onboard cameras on him. When we looked earlier today, he had a hat on. He's since taken that thing off. You can tell he's really getting hot and heavy here in this race simulation. A lot of the people at home, maybe you have some family members, some friends or whatever, don't think that you're really just intensely focusing on the sim. And it is kind of physically challenging here. Sometimes I'll get done with the race, you have a little bit of sweat in the armpits, your feet might be a little bit more damp, and certainly you lose a lot of heat through your head and your feet. So obviously Nick taking off his hat to try and make sure he keeps himself cool in this 25-minute sprint race.
Try racing with a VR on. It gets,
A heater on your face.
Yeah, you get extremely warm in the VR, but that's why we have fans and other things like that we can put on ourselves. But going back up here, looking at Marcelo, this battle here looks like for 7th and 8th. Battles all through the field here, but we're also looking at, can you outbrake? This is a guy that's following close. Maybe we'll see another pass here in the braking zone.
Oh, Daniel, looked like Andrew Hewson just went for a bit of a wild ride there. I believe he was coming out of, let's see if we can't get another look at him, out of Speaker's corner. Looks like he just got on the gas a little bit too hard, ended up spinning himself. He's going to drop down about 10 positions or so. Andrew Hewson in the BMW, the number 40 car. Getting a little bit sideways there coming out of the corner. This is looking at Marcello Magnani, the number 23 Lamborghini, trying to see if he can't hunt down the BMW of Andrew Beaver just up the road from him.
Yeah, still right on his gearbox here, so I would honestly think his best chance to pass here is gonna be in one of these braking zones, and they're getting ready to go through Eau Rouge, and we know that's followed by that really long straightaway, so there'll be a really good braking zone coming up here in just a minute for these guys.
Yeah, through Eau Rouge and Radion up here down the Kemmel Straight. It looks like he lost a big chunk of time there. And John, this is one of the tracks where if you're in a GT3 car like this, really any car with a whole lot of downforce, being in behind a guy down the straightaway, one of the best things you can do. It helps you draft, kind of get some more speed down the straights by taking a lot of the air off your car, especially that rear wing. But for some of these drivers, that's the worst thing you can have, pretty much everybody, in the corners, because again, you're losing that air on the car that helps force you into the ground, takes away a lot of grip and a lot of downforce off these cars.
Yeah, and not only that, but it makes you use your tires a little bit more to make these corners. So being behind somebody can actually increase your tire wear quite a bit, actually.
Ooh, Bruce Jackson having to go a little bit there through the grass and Lake Hom. Looks like he was trying to pull an overtake there on Nicholas Satapoutis. Got a little bit too hot going to the corner. And how about the heads-up driving, though, by Bruce to realize he was going to miss the corner, and then by Nicholas looking up in his rearview mirror to kind of realize that as well and just go a little bit wide for him. Up now back towards the front of the field, Kai Dizel currently continues to chase down Ethan Bass and James Pierce. He's been doing a really good job to reel in Pierce. Bass, excuse me, not quite as good a job to rear in Pierce, who still has a 1.7 second lead over the rest of the field.
No, and we should probably give a shout out to just a couple spots back, Harry Willows. He started from the pits and up to 6 here, so he's had a nice drive through the field as we continue to look at Kai here, all over the back bumper of Bass.
Yeah, continues to just kind of haunt him right now, basically right on his rear bumper, making sure that Ethan knows if he makes a single mistake right here, he's going to be in a whole heap of trouble, because Kai is going to end up ripping that second spot away from him. And again, no points on offer for today, just kind of a fun race for these guys to make sure that everybody is in the class that they should be before we go ahead and get this season going. And I can't imagine, again, a better place to kind of have a shakedown for all these drivers. And you're going to see a lot of drivers. Sorry, Daniel, what was that? Ah, yes. Daniel's just in my ear saying a slowdown for Ethan Bass there, going a little bit wide. So move him back one more position there with that slowdown. Again, he ended up cutting the track. For you folks at home, iRacing kind of realizes that, forces him back just a little bit to make sure that he doesn't gain an unfair advantage over his competition. So go ahead and move Kai Dizel up one more position.
Yeah, for those of you that are watching and don't actually have iRacing, what will happen in that scenario is somebody that cuts a corner like that much, you'll actually get a slowdown clock, and they want you to, and it'll count down rapidly, but you have to slow down to a certain speed for a certain amount of time before that clock goes away, and then you can go back to full song. And that right there just cost Bass a couple of spots actually doing that. No iRacer wants to see that clock pop up, that's for sure.
No, it's certainly a hit in the pride whenever you do have an off track like that. And iRacing will tell you basically you need to go ahead and give up the time that you gained because you cut the track. And sometimes they're also going to penalize you, usually pretty harshly for that. I mean, like you said, Bass probably gained about a tenth or two, but he had to end up giving back about 1 or 2 seconds. This is a look at our leader here, James Pierce. As he continues to go around the racetrack, he's got about 1 more lap or so left before he's going to go ahead and cross his start-finish line for the last time. Oh, really sideways there. Good save on his part with that Lamborghini through the chicane.
Yeah, I really like this view of Pierce here, and you could really see him when he went in there and got that thing a little out, stepped out a little. Look how much wheel he puts in there. That is just a great view.
Yeah, not too often can you see both of the driver's hand and the steering wheel, especially look at his face too when he gets ready for these corners. You can see the eyes start to focus on the different things, the turning point, the apexes, the corner exit, all that stuff.
And time is winding down here, and it looks like we only got about 1 to go here.
Yeah, so they should have gotten the white flag the last time by the start-finish line. So white flag means this is the last lap that these drivers are going to have to complete. For Kai Dalzell, looks like he's just a little bit too far back from James Pierce to end up taking away that spot. Further down in the field, you can see Ethan Bass. That's the one driver, John, that we talked about being penalized. He had that slowed down and then, of course, allowed John Schneider to get through. Back further in the field, you've got Marcelo Magnani trying to see if he can't pull 1 more position away from Andrew Beaver as they head down the Kemmel Straight into Lecombe.
Yeah, worked the braking zone perfectly here and is able to get through and on his way here, picked up the 6th spot there.
Yep, doing a phenomenal job to just go ahead and finesse this car around this racetrack. 4.3 miles, 21 turns. Back up to the front of the field, though, James Pierce continues to put on a clinic for the entire field. He continues to lead this race. Marcelo Magnani, you can see the driver there in the Lamborghini. This race really just Lamborghinis all the way up and down the field. Definitely maybe the preferred car for this track once again, and getting that phenomenal onboard view there with James Pierce. A look at what he's doing in real life. You can see, John, he's got the pedal shifters on both sides looking over at the relative.
Man, anytime I've ever looked that far away from where I'm supposed to be looking, I fence it. So kudos to him to be able to multitask there. But you could ask my wife. I'm not all that great at multitasking.
I think just as men, we're usually not very good at it, but he's going to come across the start-finish line. James Pierce is going to win the very first race here for this 2023 season of GT3 competition here for the WSL Series in the United States. He's going to come across the start-finish line to take the checkered flag, winning the first race. The first sprint race, 25 minutes. You can see the rest of the drivers start to trickle through there to bring their cars home. Looking at Aaron Beaver, looks like he's going to have to settle for 7th position right now, but that's okay. It'll put him 1 more spot higher when we go ahead and invert the field, half the field, before we get ready for our 50-minute endurance race here in just a couple minutes. Going to shift our camera here back to P13 there. Bruce Jackson in the 27 car. He's one of the drivers we looked at a whole lot during the race today. Driver number 27 BMW. Looks like he's going to have to come home and cross the start-finish line there in 13th position. Back to Andrew Hewson in 15th. He's going to bring that car home in 15th position. Good run for all these guys. Phenomenal first time out for these drivers. And John, what you say we wait maybe 10 more seconds or so for these drivers to finish? We're going to go ahead and start running down the finishing order here. So like we mentioned there, James Pierce comes home in the first position. Kai Dalzell is going to finish in second. Jacob Schneider is going to round out your podium in the 3rd position. Ethan Bass almost had both hands firmly on a podium, had a slow down there on the second to last lap, had to give up a couple seconds there, a little bit of time, 1 spot to put him in 4th position. Jeremy Littleton's going to round out the top 5, followed by Marcelo Magnani. He gained 10 spots today, up 10 from 16th to 6th. Aaron Beaver gained a good number of those as well, 24th up to the 7th position. Harry Wills qualified on pole, started from the pit lane. He'll come home And the 8th position for Justin Risteau. He gained 20 positions. Talk about some of these drivers not qualifying by where they wanted to. Justin didn't qualify at all. He's going to gain 20 spots on a day. John Casey's going to round out the top 10, followed by Nicholas Salpotis. He's going to come home in 11th place, followed by Eric Papineau in 12th. Bruce Jackson in 13th. Braden Melling going to come home in 14th. Andrew Houston going to round out the top half of your field in 15th.
Yeah, Austin, keep going. I don't have the finishing order in front of me.
Oh, all good. Andrew Hewitt's going to come home in 16th, followed by Cristiano Mulligani in the 17th position. Blake Scott's going to come home in 18th spot, followed by Lucas Souza in 19th. Greg Brockway is going to finish in the 20th position, followed by John Trainer in 21st. Nick Stein's going to come home in 22nd, followed by Kyle Smith in 23rd. Alex Murray's going to come home in 24th. Matthew Plaisance is going to finish in the 25th position, followed by Dean Timms in 26th. Christopher Johnson's going to come home in 27th, followed by Taylor Lane in 28th. James Howard and Daniel Dennison is going to round out your 30-car field.
And needless to say, that was an eventful 25 minutes that we just had here. So these guys are going to regroup, and some of those guys that had some of those eventful moments are going to be able to group themselves and hopefully have a better crack at it here.
Yeah, we're going to take another couple minutes here and see if we can get any interviews with some of the drivers that just ended up finishing there as we wait for some of those drivers to pop into our broadcast waiting room here inside Discord. John, if that first race was anything to go by, I think we're in for a lot of fun, certainly for this next race here tonight as we stick around at Spa. Next time out for a double-length feature. Pit stops, you need to take them. They're not optional anymore. They are mandatory. Going to have a lot of drivers coming down pit road, at least for fuel. We'll see if they change any tires. I feel like this is one of those scenarios. Maybe you might bolt some left side tires on the car, but it's going to be really difficult for these drivers to kind of have any confidence in terms of, having certainty that that's the best call.
Yeah, what they're doing right now, as I'm sure, is looking at what their tire wear was at the end of that little sprint there. So if the tires are, 50%, 60% wear, they're going to be getting tires when they do their pit stop here.
Looks like we have a couple drivers here able to talk to us. We'll start off with James Pierce. He was your big winner there in the first race. James, you got a copy?
Yes.
Well, talk me through that race, man. You didn't start on pole. You ended up rolling off in the 5th position there on the grid, but you were on it from the drop of the hat, and it looked like you were kind of just lurking for the first couple laps, but as soon as you wanted to make one spot, you got the second one almost right away.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll say that it was not the most conventional win I think Twisted's ever gotten, but it was good. It was good. The Ford had some pace on the straight, so we had to make sure we kind of silenced that one a bit and tried the bump drafting a bit, which didn't even work then. But no, it was kind of clean down from that. Accidentally sent one on Kai, so I apologize for that. But after that, I kind of tried to check out as much as I could, and Kai got involved in the battles back there, so I kind of was able to ease up a little bit and just cruise to it. But no, it was good. It was good pace on it, good battling towards the beginning of it. Really enjoyed it. So it was just kind of that. Just once I got that clean space, was trying to make as much, get as much out of it and try and capitalize on it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that because it looked like as soon as you got yourself out to the lead and you had some clean air in the front of your car and behind it, looked like your competition was kind of battling in and amongst themselves, and that kind of just gave you a really good opportunity to pull away in the middle portions of that race. But there, just at the end, it looked like the driver behind you was kind of catching up. Did Kai have something for you, or were you kind of just nursing your lead?
No, I'll give credit to Kai on that one. That was still flat out to a bit on that. Kind of cooked the tires midway through that race and kind of couldn't really recover fully from it. So his pace on that, I kind of equalized it a little bit towards the last lap, but before that he was coming charging hard, and I got to see the battle he had, and it was incredible. So congrats to him on P2. He drove a champ. He should have won that race if I didn't kind of snuck it up on his inside. Not the nicest way to do it, but no, he had some pace on it. He's definitely the one to watch out for the next race because he's got the pace to win it easily.
For sure. James, hopefully we have another opportunity to talk to you tonight later on, but just in case, who do you have to thank for your big win today?
Absolutely, Harry Wills, my virtual dad at this point. Love him to death. Twisted as well, they're great fellows. IMB Racewear, of course, for that. But no, I thank the whole Twisted family. It's a great place to race. Makes everything super fun. it is really a family at the end of the day because we're all in it for fun. We all come together, and it's just a good time to have out with him. So I think that, and Kai as well for giving me the fuel calculation, because I don't think I would be here without him as well.
Certainly. Well, James, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
That was James Pierce, your big winner here tonight. John, we have the opportunity to interview either Braden or Matthew. Which one do you want?
I can talk to Braden here, and Braden, this is John up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Well, my friend, not a bad way to get this whole deal started here. Big question I have is, did you get a chance to look at your tire wear at the end of that?
I did not, in all honesty. You probably saw it, but I got caught up in a few incidents. One with Harry, and that one right at the top of Eau Rouge Radion. So
Yeah.
I honestly didn't even think checking my tire wear at the end there.
Well, you get a great finish, able to really make the best out of an eventful race there. What are your thoughts now going into the second longer race here? What did you learn, and what are you ready to apply?
Well, Spa is just one of those chaotic races. And it's going to be even more fun because the second race I'm actually going to be doing a bit of a vehicle change. Talked to Harry beforehand about that, and he said it was okay, so I'm going to try something else. The Ferrari's good, but there's been another car I've been wanting to test, and I'm gonna wait for the race to start before you guys figure out what that is.
Well, that's part of the whole preseason deal, man. I hope you have fun. Hopefully we get to talk to you again at the end of that. Anybody you want to give a shout out to here for a little bit of success here on this first race?
Well, I got to give a shout out to the team, like always, like being productive, helping each other out, just getting ready for this race. They've been a big help. As our livery designer, Skyline Designs, he's done such a great job with the paints these past few years, and honestly, our cars wouldn't be looking half as good if it wasn't for him.
Well, great, man. Hey, hopefully I wish you the best luck in there. We'll be looking for your car to see what you swap into.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. That's Braden Melling. And we're going to go, I think, Austin, back to you, man.
Yes, sir. I want to take a quick second, John, just to thank some of our other sponsors at Go for the Gap. They're a fantastic up-and-coming motorsport graphic design and artwork creator run by Cami Sturch on Exy. Seriously, go and check out her store. She's got a lot of fantastic pieces of artwork, some of which I've definitely got my eye on towards the end of the season. And IMB Racewear. They're a fantastic company that offer a great range of bespoke, no-limits, fully customizable race and team wear for a full lineup of the product range. Check out their website. There should be a link below in the description to this race. Between the two races now, we're going to go ahead and cut the cameras, take a quick break while we switch over to the other session, the 50-minute endurance race. We'll be right back after this.
my chance to shine, hit my mark. I am a flame, burning boldly, illuminating. I'm gonna take control, hit the top. No one's gonna hold me back no more. It's my destiny, and you can never stop me trying to full control. It's my life, they can't hold me back no more. I know who I am, I know who I'm gonna be. On your screen while you stream, hit me all around. Let my vibe grow on the ground. Feeling my flow, it's a brand new sound. Hit the floor, shout it out, I'ma take the bow. My body's ever charged. Don't ever try and stop me. City's been the backyard of my life. Your darkness will not claim. Never gonna stop my chance this time. I'm heating just like a flame, burning boldly, illuminating. I'm gonna take control, hit the top. No one's gonna hold me back no more. It's my destiny, and you can never stop me trying to full control. It's my life, they can't hold me back no more. I know who I am, I know who I'm gonna be. In full control, it's my life, leading just how I want to. The time is mine, and I know that I got to. I'm gonna take control, hit the top. No one's gonna hold me back no more. It's my destiny, and you can never stop me trying to full control. It's my life, they can't hold me back no more. I know who I am, I know who I'm gonna be. Take control, hit the top. No one's gonna hold me back no more. It's my destiny, and you can never stop me trying to full control. It's my life, they can't hold me back no more. I know who I am, I know who I'm gonna be.
Looking sexy, looking fly. Come on, baby, dry your eyes. Looking sexy, looking fly. Come on, baby, dry your eyes. Looking sexy, looking fly. Come on, baby, dry your eyes. I'm walking through the night, and when you get inside, I wanna dance.
Welcome back, everybody. After that short break here, we're now ready for our 50-minute race to start off the basically media day for our World Series Leagues GT3 US Series. Again, basically a last chance for all the drivers to make sure that they're in the correct splits and divisions, of course, Pro, Pro-Am, and Am. Tonight, we're still here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And John, we had an incredible 25-minute sprint race. Now we've gone ahead and inverted the top half of the field. That's what set our grid here for the second race today. Mandatory pit stop in the middle. Do you take fuel? How much do you take? Do you take tires? Which ones do you take when you come down pit road?
Yeah, and the cool thing is, iRacing just had a build recently, and it actually has an autofill now. So iRacing can calculate how much fuel you need to get to the end. So a lot of that on the fly driving while you're and doing math no longer necessary for a guy like me that struggles with math with nothing else going on. Man, that's a welcome development with iRacing.
Yeah, kind of taking away some of my advantages. Somebody that can maybe do some head math inside the car during these races without having to run a crew chief software to basically tell how much fuel I need to put in the car. I've been waiting for something like that, a feature like that to come into iRacing. So happy it's here. I can tell you for sure a lot of these drivers very much so happy that we finally have something like that at our disposal to be used in the race today. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and start to run you through your starting lineup here for today. As I mentioned, there were 30 drivers in the sprint race, 25 minutes long. The finishing order from that race, we go ahead and invert the top 15 cars. So Andrew Houston finished 15th in the early race. He's going to roll off on the pole position. Brandon Malin going to start to his outside in the second spot. Bruce Jackson, a bit of an up and down race earlier today, going to roll off in the third position, followed by Eric Papineau in fourth. Nicholas Salapautis is going to roll off in fifth, followed by John Casey in sixth. Justin Risto is going to start in seventh position. He gained 20 spots in the sprint race earlier today. Harry Wills started from the pit lane. He finished in the eighth position. He's going to start in eighth. Aaron Beaver is going to roll off in ninth. Rounding out your top 10 starting spots is Marcelo Magnani. Jamie Littleton's going to roll off in 11th position, followed by Ethan Bass in 12th. And now your podium finishers from that sprint race earlier today: Jacob Schneider in 13th, Kai Dalzell in 14th, and James Pierce in 15th. Every driver from here on out is going to start in the exact same position that they finished in earlier today, barring some of the drivers making the last race, missing this one to start off. Andrew Hewitt's going to roll off in 16th position. Cristiano Maglione is going to roll off in 17th, followed by Blake Scott in 18th. Lucas Souza in 19th, followed by Greg Brockway, going to round out the top 20. Nick Stein in 21st. Kyle Smith rolling off in 22nd, followed by Alex Murray in 23rd. Matthew Plaisance in 24th. Dean Timms rolling off in 25th. Rounding out the field is Christopher Johnson in 26th. Taylor Lane in 27th. And Daniel Dennison in 28th, excuse me. So Andrew Houston in command of the field, following behind the iRacing pace car. And John, he's got a whole lot of track to make up between when the iRacing pace car exits the track right here and when we start to take the green flag. Not the typical start-finish line you're used to seeing for those Formula One cars. This one is on the opposite side here of what is the hairpin towards the bottom of the track.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of time, but you can also play games in a little bit of time too, or work advantage. More time to think about what you're about to do, and especially coming out of this next little hairpin here. And it's a daunting task to look up All Rouge when you're firing off in a field.
Yeah, especially when everybody down the entire field is already too wide, all the way down, kind of marching Noah's Ark style. Green flag in the air from iRacing. However, it's up to Andrew to determine when he wants to start the race. He's kind of, whoa, a little bit of a sideways motion. Netcode there throughout the field. A couple of drivers there getting turned around. I believe that was Eric Papineau there facing sideways just a little bit in that Mercedes. One of the BMW cars was absolutely facing the wrong direction before he even got to Eau Rouge and Radeon. Further up through the field, you can see Andrew Houston. Pretty good gap back there to Brandon Mailing, and then a 2-second gap to the next driver, Bruce Jackson, behind those guys. Oh, and he's facing the wrong direction of the bottom hill, excuse me. That's Harry Wills.
Once again, we have an eventful start here to a race here at Spa. No surprise, we've talked about how tight this track actually is and some of the different braking zones. Areas where you're doing 160 and rolling up to trying to get it locked down to 45, 50 mile an hour in some of these, like the section they're going through right now.
Yeah, too wide is not normally how you see drivers go through that last section there. And now it's time for the fast left-handers as they come out of that corner. A couple left-handers until you get up more so to the bottom of this hill, as it were, when you get down towards Lafroig and Campus.
Some guys,
bitter.
I was just about to say, some guys are going to struggle right through here with these tires. Not up to temps yet. We immediately saw one go around. That's Andrew Hewitt that loops it around there.
Yeah, Andrew Hewitt started this race in 16th, so unfortunately, just barely one spot out of that invert. He's going to continue to roll around further down the field. Currently the driver in the 16th spot, Alex Murray. Murray rolled off the grid. Trying to find him here on my sheet. The 11 car, driving another Porsche. Alex rolled off in 23rd, so he's doing a pretty good job right now. Couple spots up the field. Further up the field, though, Nicholas Salapautis, one of the drivers that was in the invert there. drive in ninth place, driver number 26, Lamborghini. Lots of Lamborghinis in this field today. Ooh, sideways as they come through Blanchimont. Ends up nosing the car to the barrier. There's another car sideways behind him and doing the exact same thing further down the track. And another car going sideways. I wonder if that was Souza.
I see another one come spinning
Well,
by
that
us.
was Jackson. Have to see who was involved in that most recent one, and I think indeed no, not Bruce Jackson was that BMW that ended up colliding there with Salapata. So lots of drivers kind of jumbling up the order for right now. At the front of the field, it's still Andrew Hewson. He's got Melling just in behind. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, and we just talked to Melling, and remember he said he was going to switch cars. Well, look what we have here. He has.
Yeah, that was a quick change for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you see a lot of drivers. They had the opportunity to change cars if they wanted to. Go ahead, John.
As I say, Kai Diesel here coming through the field. But yeah, they're not going to be allowed to do that, though, here starting next week. They're going to have to make their bed and lie in it, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah, they've got about 4 days left to go ahead and choose whichever car they'd like to race in for this upcoming GT3 racing season. Again, these drivers absolutely spoiled for choice. 8 different cars they could choose from. We're looking at all 8 different of those machines here out in today's race. I think we might be missing the Lamborghini. Not quite sure I saw one of those cars, but I think other than that, every single make and model here within the iRacing current GT3 spec class is being represented today.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. And we talked about it earlier too, though. Each one of these cars have different characteristics, pros and cons to running them. You know, some cars handle better through more technical parts of the track. Others have better top end speed. It feels like so. This is going to be a big decision this upcoming week for these guys to figure out what's going to be their car of choice.
Looking right here at Harry Wills. He's currently in the 3rd position, trying to snag that 2nd spot away from Brandon Melling. That guy you were talking about changing his car was in, I believe, the Ferrari earlier today. Just now switched to that Ford GT. See if Harry Wills can pull the under on him. Not quite close enough to get that done right there. Maybe Harry can have a good opportunity at doing an outbraking maneuver here into the final corner here. This hairpin, a slow right-hander riding on board right now with Harry.
Yeah, I tell you, you feel so slow going through there. You feel like you should be able to go faster through there, and you just can't, because if you don't, if you go too fast with it, you shove the nose coming out of that corner, and it messes up this whole run up through Rouge, and man, it'll just kill your top end speed through here.
Man, look at this run from Harry. He did a much better job through Rouge and Ready, and he's going to have a slipstream going down the Camel Straight. Doesn't even have to outbrake his opponent here into Lake Com. He's already got the overspeed. Go ahead and tuck into the draft. We can Melling all he wants, but it's going to be Harry Wills making up that next position there as they go through into Lake Com. Now Harry can set his sights on Andrew Hewson just up the road right now to the tune of about 1.2 seconds.
We got a nice little battle here, Aaron Beaver, and it looks like that might be one of our in-car guys. They're kind of, I think, might have just had an off a little bit. Jackson, maybe.
Let's see if we can find that on our screen. Otherwise, though, yeah, John, this battle you were talking about, Aaron Beaver, continues to be hounded by the driver behind him, John Schneider. Schneider, again, one of those drivers doing very good in the last race, and that number 81 Porsche rolled off in 13th position to start off this race, so just barely missed out on the podium there, but doing a really good job so far in this race. So no, he did make the podium, excuse me. He made the podium. Bass, the car ahead of him, did not.
We got a picture-in-picture here, taking a look at Braden Melling here, and man, you know, it's just weird seeing a Ford GT out, because usually if you do an open server, most races, you're right, you just don't see that car out too often. But I'm telling you, it's holding its own here tonight.
Yeah, it's no slouch, and again, it really should be a surprise to anybody, because all these GT3 cars are made to race with each other. If the car is overpowered or underpowered in real life, basically iRacing is going to go through it and make sure that the specifications are kind of that for all these cars to race closely with one another, so that one car does not have an advantage from one week to next. all the cars are pretty much close. It might, a track might suit one car in specific, but by and large, over the course of an entire race, the course of a whole season, all these cars should be just about identical. You see Schneider right now trying to dive that car down to the inside of Beaver. Move Schneider up one more position there into the 8th position.
Textbook pass there, get a nice run now, heading back to Eau Rouge and start another lap here. And definitely the guys have, I think, calmed down a little bit from that first race. We saw a lot of chaos there that first lap or two, and I just haven't seen that kind of chaos the second go around here.
I feel like, again, all that chaos to start out the race kind of been a wake-up moment for a lot of guys. Looking here, Daniel, if we could get a view at Ethan Bass making a dive bomb move here into Lake Com. Clean dive bomb, as it were. Those go ahead and move Ethan up into the 12th position there. He just got his way around Alex Murray there, so go ahead and move Murray back one more position to 13th, and we're really going to be spoiled for choice here all race long with which battle we want to have, because you're going to see guys closing in on one another. Just up the field is Kai Dalzell, one of the fastest guys towards the end of the last practice. Last race, I should say, qualified second overall, was leading the race, and I think he was probably the fastest car towards the end of that session, making a move here, trying to see if he can poke his nose up the inside of Magnani. Looks like he's going to do just that, move himself up into the 4th position.
Yeah, Mike Natty did a really good job there of realizing where Diesel was, and was able to hold his line, and that's a big part of getting in the braking zones and everything else. You really got to count on the guy that you're wanting to pass to understand where you're at and what's going on, and that eliminates a lot of opportunity to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, and for you folks at home, sometimes it is drivers looking in the mirror the same way you would in your road car, but it's also the fact that these drivers have a spotter, kind of like you're used to seeing in NASCAR, IndyCar, someone that's telling you when there's a car on your left or on your right. It's basically an automated system, and it's one that you can trust in iRacing. If it says there's a car to your left or to your right, there really is one there, so you best off give him space there, just for racing's sake. Further down in the field, taking a look here at Dean Timms, one of the drivers, I believe he was one of the guys that went a little bit sideways there off the start of this race, so definitely good recovery mode for him in that number 46 machine, currently running in the 11th spot. He started in 25th position, so he's done a great job to move himself up a whopping 14 spots to this point in the race.
Yeah, and we see down here Kai Diesel here looking to make a pass again. We just saw this, and see him flashing the lights saying, hey, I'm going to be coming here.
Yeah, it does a duck out from behind the car just up the road in front of him. All that overspeed, last of the last outbreakers. Barely able to clear himself as he goes through Lake Com, so go ahead and move Kai up one more position. Now he's on to those podium places. Just up the road is Harry Wills. He's done a good job to half Andrew Hewson's lead since the last time we talked about it in that Mercedes, trying to see if he can't chase down that Lamborghini there of Hewson at the moment. I believe that's actually a BMW. That's my bad.
Yeah, and that's something else we haven't touched on at all here is, another way drivers can communicate with each other.
Oh, he's going
on
sideways.
track.
Isn't their leader? Big old drift there, barely able to save the car. It's going to result in Harry Wills coming through there. Sorry, John, as you see James Pierce into the wall just a couple corners before that.
Oh, man, that is a big shunt into the wall there. So, and Jacob Schneider, man, that's going to be it's going to be a tough one to swallow there, but as I was saying, though, one thing we haven't touched on is, drivers can communicate with each other on the track with their headlights. You can flash them to let your intentions be known, and that's another way that you can keep that chaos from happening as long as each other are understanding what those flashers mean.
Yeah, certainly. Usually when somebody flashes you, it's, hey, I'm here and I intend to pass you going into this next corner. So hopefully your car isn't there when I intend to be on that apex. You saw just a minute ago, I mentioned our leader going for a wild ride there, Andrew Hewson, put the car just a little bit sideways. He's reconciled himself back right now in the second position. But boy, John, it's like a light switch. All of a sudden, about 11 and a half, maybe 10 or so minutes into this race, you saw a lot of drivers kind of tires start to just shut off there. And that's why I feel like a lot of guys just went wide there, especially those last couple left-handers.
Yeah, and that's what I said at the very, very top of the show. It's a little bit different from the last time these guys were on track in this series. I have to expect that they did their due diligence. That's why I think when we do get to the pit stop here, I have to think they're going to take tires.
Yeah, I have to imagine the rears, of course. You're going to want to make the fronts known as well because they're the ones actually steering the car. But you need those rear tires for grip. Looking at this two-wide battle, this is between teammates here. Kai Dazzal down the inside of Andrew Houston, trying to see if he can't run down his teammate there, Harry Wills, just up the road. And all three of those cars look kind of similar. We've got chrome on one half, the Twisted Racing machines, a couple different names there for the teams, but all these guys pretty much all pals racing with each other here, the Twisted cars.
Yeah, and there you saw flashing of the lights, another way to communicate. That was just simply Diesel saying, hey, thank you for letting me by, you know, not giving me a hard time here.
Yeah, lots of things that drivers can do to communicate with one another. There is also an in-game chat, like we mentioned there, John. You can do a lot more than just a couple flashes of the lights, actually verbally communicate with drivers. This is a replay of what was going on with Houston here on your screen. Coming out of a left-hander. This is right before he went for that wild spin. This is a miraculous save by him. He's got Harry Wills breathing down his neck. You can just see go for a bit of a wild ride right here. Big old drift for him. Fast and Furious Tokyo boys would be proud.
Yeah, that's a case of just getting in way too deep and trying to get that car slowed down enough to make that turn. And yeah, the back ends of these cars, if you drive them in too deep and think you're going to just stand on the brake, that is what's going to happen. What a great job, though, for him to pull himself out of that and not make that a whole lot worse than end up in the barriers.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 you'll see a car do that, especially in that section of the track. They are almost certainly going to loop it around. If they don't loop it around, they're going to nose it into the fence there on the left-hand side. The battle you're looking at on your screen right now, Marcello Magnani trying to see if he can't go to battle here. Oh, there's another one further down the road, an outbraking opportunity there from Taylor Lane on Kyle Smith.
You know, I've never had the opportunity to run it, even though it's been on my iRacing checklist, is to run the 24 Hours of Spa, which is a GT3. I can't imagine having to be this focused around the clock for this race here. That has got to be really difficult because you really, to get around this track, you really cannot really lose focus at too many points in the track.
Drivers heading down the Kennel Straight right now. You can see Braden Melling trying to see if he can't get the move done here on Magnani just up the road. That's Magnani going through, as it were. So move Marcello one position more up the road. A little bit of an opposite lock going on there. And John, it's one of those races where you have to do it once in your iRacing career. I've had the opportunity to run the Spot 24 on 2 different occasions there, 2019 and 2020 respectively. And it's one of those races that it's really fun. But yeah, like you talk about, you have to be hyper focused throughout the entire thing, especially at night. There's so many things that can happen and jump out at you, and 9 times out of 10 it's the same as a Rolex 24. It's a race of attrition. You really just need to survive the darn thing.
I can imagine, but unfortunately I've hung up my 24-hour race. I did my last one here for the Daytona, and so it's one I unfortunately will not get to check off here.
Oh, a bit of a wild ride there for, I believe that was a pass just to the road ahead of Dean Timms there. You can see a little bit of the car stepped on him there. So they're going through those last couple corners, and those ones so crucial for the lap time because, again, faster corners, but not quite as fast as you'd hope for to get all the downforce, especially on the rear end of these cars. You really just have to sling the car through those. But John, completely understand that 24-hour races, big commitment, especially when you get up there in age. You have a lot more responsibilities. You have kids, a wife, family, things like that. You know, pets, house. One car there completely off to the side. I wonder who that was. Might have been Dennison there. So we look at Alex Murray.
And I think you just called me old.
I did not. Older, not old.
Oh, we got one point in the wrong direction here, and that's not a good spot that you want to be looking at oncoming traffic.
I believe that was Taylor Lane. We'll see if we can't get a beat on which driver that was spinning around there. But yeah, that's one of those places. And John, you touched on it too. One of those slower corners where you're really just trying to put the power down. Looks like that was Blake Scott there facing the wrong direction out of the chicane. And you try to put all the power down. You're in first gear, such a slow corner. In first gear, that's one of the worst gears for getting those rear tires to spin. And it's so easy to loop that car around.
and it's even easier 16 some odd minutes in the race after you put some wear into them, because that grip is not there for you just to stand on it coming through that area.
Well, John, I want to bring it up. I want to get your thoughts on this too. You know, we call you the professor. We call you that for a reason. You are a professor of law, not necessarily of race cars and pit strategy, but I do highly value your opinion when it comes to these things. We're about 17 minutes into this 15-minute race, fastly approaching the halfway point. Is that when, if you're one of these drivers, you expect for them to come down pit road, maybe just kind of try to split the race in half and try to do equal damage on 2 tire sets?
That is what I would do. But you know, there's something to be said about if you've taken care of your tires and you can kind of stretch it a little bit, then these guys that do short pit or pit at that halfway, they're going to be falling off, and you're going to be a little bit stronger. So if you want to have something in the tank at the end to make any kind of moves to gain any spots, you know, either strategy I think will work. I think it just kind of really depend on your skill set and how you've driven the car. You know, someone like me that's probably prone to over driving a lot of corners, I'm stopping as soon as I can and doing that equal damage. But some of these guys that are really smooth, I would go maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes longer if I can to stretch it a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. I'm always one of those drivers. I'd rather be on the offense than the defense when it comes down to the end of some of these races. So I might try to extend my first stint, as it were, maybe 5 or 10 extra minutes, and then be really attacking towards the last bit of the race. But Kai Diesel has actually run down Harry Wills up at the front end of the field. That's why you see that side-by-side going on your screen. So Jeremy Littleton on the left, that's a battle for what looks to be the 5th position there. Brandon Milling just up the road. The battle on the right is, of course, for an overall race lead. Harry Wills just up the road from Kai Diesel. One of the drivers that qualified on the pole for the last race, the 2 drivers, 1 and 2 right now, both qualified 1st and 2nd in our sprint race.
Yeah, what's crazy is we're talking about going, you know, 5 minutes longer, but you know, with as big as this track is, 5 minutes, that's just 2 laps. That's 2 extra laps than what everybody else is going. You know, even 10 minutes, you're talking, you know, maybe 4, maybe 5 extra laps. So not a whole lot of difference between staying out there or not, but that little bit can make a big difference. So
Kai Diesel continues to try and hunt his prey just up the road. Harry Wills all over the place. He's all over him right now, trying to look left, trying to look right, doing everything he can to make sure he continues to apply that pressure. And John, you can see both these guys, little bits of oversteer here and there. The car's not quite handling to either one of their likings. Right now, I have to feel like Kai Diesel currently has the edge. He didn't just run down Harry Wills to about 1.2 seconds for nothing.
yeah, I think you're right. And you know, and you've got teammates, I've got teammates. You know, when you have a teammate in front of them, you're going to run them very respectful. But man, you do not want them to stay in front of you. You want to get around them to have those bragging rights. So that's what you kind of, I think, see here. These guys are really pushing each other.
Yeah, they continue to do that clicking off the fastest laps of everybody else in the field, and you kind of have to wonder if both these guys are kind of in each other's ears saying, hey,
Outbreaking
I wanna
them, look
hit
at
it.
this.
Oh, yeah, dive down the inside goes Kai. Harry forced to go a little
Wow.
bit wide to kind of circumvent that. We'll see if Harry has any sort of a challenge back. I kind of doubt it, just given by how much Kai's been pushing his car the last couple laps. But John, now it begs the question, has Kai kind of been burning up his tires a little bit too much here? Is Harry maybe going to have a chance to come back at him in a couple laps? Ooh, Kai went a little bit wide there.
All I know is that pass was textbook. That's, you go back, you look at that over and over again. You want to know how to properly execute a pass in a braking zone? That was it. But look at this.
Yeah, he went around the outside there through a Rouge and Radion, so they're going to continue to be single file. I'm not quite sure where that overspeed came from, unless maybe Kai missed a gear or something, because Harry absolutely came out of nowhere to take back the lead as they head down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, well, you saw him get a little bit out of sorts there, coming out of that hairpin down there, and it looks like that really, you know, set him off for that long stretch there. But we're looking now at Ethan Bass back there in his Ford, and he continues to make progress through the field now. Is up into the top 5.
Yeah, I kind of have to wonder, especially after that 25-minute sprint race. I have to imagine that Ethan is really chomping at the bit here to get on this podium. He was that driver, if you remember, at the top of the show, the end of our sprint broadcast. He was in the third position, went a little bit wide there through Eau Rouge, and Radion was forced to have a slowdown, relegated him back to about fourth or fifth place. Just barely hung on to that, knocked himself off of the podium. Due to that little bit of mistake. So have to imagine for him, definitely hungry to try to redeem himself, I'd say, John.
Absolutely. You know, it's one thing if something happens out of your control on the track, but when you beat yourself, most guys I know, that kind of sticks with them a little bit, and that redemption, that's something that they're eager to do. And Ethan is showing, though, he's a heck of a driver. He's come up through this field here and continues to make progress here. So we'll keep an eye on him, see if he can get up there to the podium before this is all over.
Yeah, we're also going to keep our eyes here on Kai Dalziel as he continues to hunt down Harry Wills. I'll be curious to see if these two continue to trade the lead back and forth or not. It looks like Kai's kind of just slotted himself right now in behind Harry. No doubt he's faster at the moment. It maybe out of the source, but I'll have to see. Oh, Kai's going to actually dive down pit road about halfway exactly through this race next time by. So Harry continues to stay out on track. Kai's going to bring that car down onto pit road. I'll be really interested to see what Kai ends up choosing to do in terms of strategy. How much fuel does he take? Does he go up off the jack stands or not, especially?
Yeah, that's the thing we've been wondering from the get-go here is, will guys take that extra time? But that's another change that iRacing made recently. You can fuel and change tires now at the same time in these cars. Back in October when these guys were on track, that was not the case. You had to fuel it, then put the tires on.
Yep, and that had been the case for years. It wasn't like they've been flip-flopping on things. That had been the case that you fueled the car for a while, then you put tires on, and it was that way for years. So this change again, like John brought up at the top of the show, you know, this is a new change for all these drivers. And again, that's certainly the first time that some of these guys are probably coming down pit road in this sort of a competitive scenario for these guys. So I've got my eyes on Kai. We'll see if he goes up on the jack stands or not. Doesn't look like he is for right now. It's kind of surprising.
Well, he must be confident then in what he's kept under him and not abusing the tires. Like I said, at the end of that sprint race, I would have been checking my tire wear, and that would have dictated my strategy in here. If I got into the pits and, you know, I had 85, 90% of my tires left, even 80%, I would double stint them in this one here and just take fuel only. If I pulled into those pit area after that race and I was 50, 60, I think I would be taking tires at that point.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there completely. So looking at Kai myself, he did not end up going up on the jack stand, so he kept all four of those tires on his car. So we'll see with what everybody else does as they go on. But again, that might save him a little bit of time because he's only having to fuel the car. He doesn't need to spend extra time in there getting more fuel or changing the tires. But I feel like if you're going to spend even a little bit of time down on pit road, maybe it wouldn't hurt you too much to maybe change out left sides, right sides, maybe the fronts or the rears or something. So kind of interested to see what that rare is. But of course, you know, you change the tires on a car unevenly without changing all four of them. That can adversely sometimes help you, sometimes hurt you with the handling of your race car.
Yeah, another thing to play here also is how much fuel do you need to take to get to the end? If you only need a splash of fuel or 2 seconds of fuel, you know, changing tires is going to add 5, 6, 7 seconds to your if not longer, to your stop. So you're going to gain by just sticking it out on those tires. You're just going to have to be smarter on how you drive. But that's also something else you have to take into consideration. How much fuel do you actually need?
Yeah, another thing we need to talk about too as we ride on board with Harry Wills, looking out the windshield of that Mercedes AMG GT3 car. As you can see, probably the best sounding race car in all of the iRacing platform, in my humble opinion. The absolute just growl of this muscly V8 behind the wheel here. Harry Wills continue to saw on that thing. You can see tires maybe kind of just starting to give out for him. But John, one other thing that can really affect when you come down pit road is if you're being held up. And in the case of, I think, Kai Dalziel, he was maybe being held up a little bit by Harry Wills, so he elected to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be one of the first ones to pit, and hopefully I don't run into more traffic up the road, and maybe he can go for an undercut on Harry.
Yeah, the undercut, you know, as long as he was faster, you know, and if he was being held up will work, that, you know, Usually when you think of undercut, I think of, okay, they're going to take their tires early and bust those fast laps off while somebody's out on the older tires. But, ooh, a little bit of a moment there for Taylor Lane coming through that braking zone. But, you know, there's so many things here at play. And, you know, cool thing is, hey, this isn't for points. This is just to kind of figure out which part of the series you're going to be running in. Why not gamble here? Why not just kind of find out and take notes of how things turn out by doing something maybe you wouldn't normally do?
Yeah, looking here at Taylor Lane, another one of those drivers with our onboard driver cameras. You can see him using the Formula One Fanatec wheel as he continues to wheel that BMW GT3 car around the Belgian countryside, as it were. Currently, he's right in the 6th position. And John, you know, I do normally think of undercutting a guy as in putting on the fresh tires and kind of just ripping off those fast laps with your new rubber. But sometimes it can also just be getting yourself out there in clean air as well, just putting before that guy and making sure you kind of run him down without him even knowing what kind of lap times you're putting down on the track.
Yeah, and, you know, like I said, these guys, you know, they're going to have a couple of these kinds of races, you know, throughout the season and stuff like that, same format. So like I said, you know, there's really no downside to maybe trying something new to see how it works out for you here. So, I mean, those things could also be at play. I mean, you see guys changing manufacturers. As we look now, Ethan Bass looks like he's going to gain another spot here maybe.
Yeah, Ethan Bass trying to see if he can't go around the outside there of Marcelo Magnani. That'll be for the 2nd position overall as they head down the Kemmel Straight and into Lake Common. Again, you know, one of those drivers changing the cars, and maybe he just kind of felt like that one car he was going to try them both out today, and maybe he realized he didn't like the feeling and handling of the first car he tried out. So back now to Taylor Lane in the BMW. Again, another one of those guys going through Lake Common. A little bit of a nudge there, a bump and run, as it were, to Braden Melling.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing that could be changing for these guys is you may or may not have noticed on the screen, but it's starting to get closer to sunset here in the Belgian countryside, and that's going to change track temperature, which means tires are going to get more grip, engines are going to get more power. So all of a sudden, a lot of the stuff these guys are going to figure out, is it their cars changing? Is it the weather changing? That's one of the cool things about road racing. There's so many things you got to figure out on the fly.
Yeah, there certainly is. You can see the sun continues to set here. It's going to continue to get darker and darker. One of the things you have to be especially careful about here at Spa is that when it continues to get darker, some of your braking points will start to go away. You have to be more attuned to where you are on the track just by maybe how long you've been on the throttle and different things like that, because no longer can you use specific trees for braking points or certain markers on the track because it is just too dark outside of where your headlights are on the track to really tell where you are with different braking markers. So you really do have to kind of figure out where you start to brake now, especially once your tires get worn. You know, sometimes on new tires you can afford to brake at the 150 meter board, and then when you get worn tires you have to back that up maybe 175 or 200 meters from the corner.
Yeah, just so many things change, you know, from the weather, like we said, to the tire wear, and guys really have to adjust to that on the fly as they drive.
It looks like we're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties here on the side of the production team, so we'll see if we can't get some more live views here in just a couple seconds, but we'll continue to call this like a radio broadcast until we do finally get live pictures. Here they are, just in time. Harry Wills continues to stomp the field right now. Ethan Bass in the 2nd position, about 5 seconds back. Marcelo Magnani in the 3rd position, rounding out the podium 6 seconds behind our leader right now, Harry Wills. Jeremy Littleton in 4th, and Alex Murray in 5th.
And Ethan Bass now all the way up to 2nd here. I would say no matter how this turns out, I think he's kind of redeemed himself here a little bit from that mistake he made in that first race. Having an excellent run up through the field here, and man, it just continues to get darker and darker, and you do have to constantly adjust almost lap to lap with how things are changing, especially from a temperature standpoint.
Yeah, Harry Wills comes down pit road. That should put the lead over to Ethan Bass if he continues to stay out on track. And I couldn't agree with you more, John. Ethan can certainly be proud of this run. He's gained 10 positions since the drop of this green flag, doing an absolute whale of a job there to recover himself. And I feel like he's putting himself in very, very good position here for a podium before this night is over. Looking at two of the twisted cars, Andrew Hewson in front, Kai Dalzell in behind him. And Kai, one of those first drivers to come down pit road and take that pit stop. Andrew Hewson was the driver that started the course on pole after finishing in 15th position in the last race. Hewson currently running in 14th position. I'll be kind of curious how much he holds up his teammate here, John.
Yeah, I was just thinking that because you talked about undercutting, saying, okay, I'm going to pit here and maybe get some track by myself where I can run faster laps. This is the worst case scenario that you can have. You can see him there flashing lights. Please let me by, because every moment that he gets held up here just kills that strategy of trying to get around just from lap times, get around Wills here.
Yeah, and it's a big risk, especially when you undercut by just this much. I mean, he undercut by, 3 or 4 laps, I think, since we saw him go in. Wills has stayed on track. I think he finally went into the pit lane, but right now everybody else looks to have done the same thing. Bath, McNally, Littleton, Scott, Dennison, all the way down to Casey, I think, the next car, and then he'll have the opportunity to come down pit road. It might be for Hewson. He should be pitting this time by. We'll have to see if he does just that, but it's the risk you take when you undercut by that much, is running into slower traffic with the road from you. So yeah, Hewson gonna be... Oh, Hewson has already pitted, excuse me. So thank you, Daniel, director cameraman, for telling us that. So he is kind of shaping out to be the leader. If these guys can both pass Harry Wills, we'll see where they line up.
Yeah, Kai is still patiently looking for that way around here, but I have to wonder just how long that patience is going to last before he doesn't try to make something happen here.
Yeah, it looks like Harry Wills hasn't yet made his pit stop, so he's going to have to do that before the end of this race. There is a mandatory pit stop for all the drivers. Harry Wills has not yet made his, but again, that's a risk you take. It's a calculated risk to say, hey, I think I'm faster enough. Go ahead, John.
So here comes that pass.
Dive bomb there down to the inside. Absolute textbook pass there again out of Dalzell. He's going to be past his teammate there of Andrew Hewson. So that should, at the end of the day, when everything cycles out, it'll most likely put Kai Dalzell into the second position overall, back to where he was running. Hewson still a no for a good shout at a podium position, even a top 5 before the night is over. And just like that, Harry Wills brings his Mercedes GT3 car down pit road, giving it one heck of a drift there as he rotates that thing to come down pit road.
And Harry Wills has finally come into the pits, so right now is where Dalzell needs to really make some time to close that gap.
Yeah, but you have to make sure you don't get too complacent by pushing yourself too hard in your race car. Otherwise, you might make an unforced error, maybe push the car wide in a couple different areas, and then it's almost like you didn't undercut yourself at all, because, of course, Harry Wills has had all that clean air this entire time. Taking a look here at Kai Dalzell. This is coming up at, I believe, turns 17 and 18. Getting ready to come through Blanchemont. Just a couple seconds here. Harry Wills has not yet stopped in his box. It's a very, very long pit road here, one of the longest in all of iRacing.
Yeah, and this will be a great shot if he catches him just right. You're going to see probably one car on pit road, one car on the racetrack, most likely here. We'll see what happens here.
So Harry Wills has just stopped in his box, looking at it right now to see if he goes up on the jack stands or not. He hasn't yet, so I can only assume he's not taking tires as he gets passed by a lap car. Still looking at Kai Dalzell. He's going to go through his tight right-hander hairpin, and Harry is already off and moving away from pit road, so this might be an easy position here. Again, this is the opportunity advantage we have of going through here.
Yeah, but he's got to hug this fence up here, and so he's got a little bit out of the way here. But yeah, looks like he's going to hang on to the lead.
Yeah, side by side there. Fantastic camera angles there, Daniel. Thank you so much. So Harry Wills going to continue to stay in the lead here. We'll see if Kai can run him down here towards the end of this race, but I tell you what, Harry used the clean air there to his complete advantage.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, too, is Kai has got Ethan between the two of them there, and Ethan at this point, he's moved up through the field way too much to just roll over and let Kai by him.
Certainly not. We've still got about 14 or 15 minutes left in this race, so there's still a lot of racing left. This is a battle right now. Dean Timms currently in the 5th position. He's got Andrew Houston just up the road, 2 BMWs locked in this battle. Just in front of these guys is Kai Dalzell. And I'll tell you what, John, I'm kind of surprised Kai hasn't been pulling away from these guys any faster given the rate at which he caught him up.
No, man, you know, I'm thinking though, you know, we've got 14 minutes here. He is going to have to trim a decent amount off every lap to get him, and that's going to be a huge. Kai's moving down the field.
Yeah, Kai must have had some sort of an error there. He continues to drop down. We'll see if we can't get a live look at him. Yeah, he did make some sort of an error there into a couple of the chicanes. This is looks like a replay here. Yeah, just slowed down, maybe forced to take some sort of a penalty. Oh, he just pulled off and stopped. Oh, he spun the car. He spun the car out and ended up hitting it sideways into the barriers there very hard. So odds are lots of suspension damage onto that Lamborghini. He actually just picked the whole car up sideways and threw it about 1 foot up into the air. So he prices up for race-ending damage.
Yeah, that would be a massive shunt there, and that will that'll make the car almost probably undrivable when you hit that hard here. So. You know, that's gonna put a little bit of pressure on Harry now. You know, he's used to this. Like we said, we're gonna take a look here at the replay. What happened to Kai Diesel here?
Yeah, the car just breaks loose on him going into this right-hander, tries to correct it to the left, and absolutely slams the tire barrier, starts to get the car going, and I think it's right about here in about 10 or so seconds he realized that car not handling the way he wants it to, race-ending suspension. I believe if we look over at the entries, yeah, he's got a big sweaty Italian guy would say, a big meatball of that car set, of course, ends his race. iRacing says he's required to take the amount of repairs to fix that car, and with only about 12 minutes left in this race, it's pretty much going to end his day.
Yeah, and that looked like a classic case of just driving it a little too deep and trying to apply too much brake. And that back just kind of lost the traction there, you know, cross between wheel hop and coming around there, and he overcorrected and then went out into the wall there. So tough break for him, but we pointed out no points here, so you know, he's probably learned what he's wanted to learn here. We got a heck of a battle here with Dean Timms. This is for a podium here.
Yeah, for a podium spot, so definitely you're going to see everything on the line here. Dean, seeing if he can't get some clean air on the front end of that BMW, decides to tuck back in behind Andrew Houston. The fastest way between 2 points is a straight line. These guys trying to straighten the curves the best they can. We'll see if Dean's gotten anything for Andrews. They go down these longer straightaways after these two really fast right-handers. This next one, crucial for the overall speed of a lap. You have to open up the wheel just enough to get it, to maximize the run and the speed out of that corner, but not too much just to get yourself a slowdown or even hit that wall on the left side of the track. That's something you see a lot when guys are really trying to put down some fast times.
Yeah, and you know, and the other thing too, with the tire wear being a little bit higher, you know, and I saw this in another race the other night that I actually called, and you were in that race, I believe, Austin, or no, maybe you weren't with BRL, but the tires with them wearing, you're getting more marbles on the track. So if you go out of the race line a little bit, pick these marbles up on your tires, that is going to help you miss the corner that you're trying to get through.
I was, John. Yeah, the BRL late model stock cars in South Boston. It was incredible to see just how many marbles were just off the racing groove. You got 1.5 to 2 grooves off the track, 2 lanes, I should say, and it was just marble city up there. When you get those marbles on the tires, they stick around for quite some time. It took about 2 laps if you got marbles on your tires to get those things cleaned off and finally have the confidence in the car that you were used to. But it looked like Dean has a heck of a run right here on Andrew. We'll see if he does anything with it. Getting closer and closer, thinking about making a move. Finally decides to put his car next to him. Going to make an absolutely decisive decision there. Go ahead and send that car up the inside. That's for a podium position.
Yeah, and that's a lot of respect from 2 drivers there. Dean was able to show his nose out there, show what his intent was, and in Houston there just, you know, was like, okay, you know, and didn't try blocking or doing anything sketchy there to put either one of them in a bad position. That's the kind of racing you like to be involved involved in and see.
You know, and Jen, and I know you can speak to this as well. These guys here at World Series Leagues, some of the cleanest, most respectful guys I've ever had the opportunity to call races for. They continue to put on really good shows, and I think it is just for the respect they have towards each other and their racecraft. You continue to see that today. Down further in the field, you see Kyle Smith here trying to chase down Braden Milling.
Yeah, and this is a battle for 9th and 10th out on the field here, so back in the pack. Oh, big trouble.
Oh, that's a big slide there. Yeah, very, very off track.
Yeah,
there. Ooh, almost stopped the car before he got to the tires. Ends up messing up that rear wing.
Yeah, no, he can't even drive it straight. They damaged the suspension in that car for sure as he tried to pull away. That car, the front of that car was pointed in a different direction than the back of that car, and that makes it difficult to carry on.
Yeah, and honestly, it's scary just to try and drive that car back to pit road. He doesn't have very far to go, maybe about a fifth of the track. But boy, you know, when the suspension is damaged that much and you can see the meatball flag at that point, it's best just to tow. Because, John, I know you can speak to this, sometimes getting taken out in races, especially in road cars. You start to go in at 40 miles an hour, you feel like you have a decent idea of where the wheel needs to be to go straight, and then you start to crest 60 and 80. And once it seems like you hit 85 mile an hour, that car just has a different mind of its own, and it starts to scoot that rear end around, and you're almost out of control just trying to take it easy back to pit road and not lose all that time towing.
You are, because all the things that it wants to do, all of it is unpredictable. You don't expect all of a sudden the back to try to pass the front of the car, and that's what it feels like from time to time. And that's kind of what you saw there as he pulled away. But he did the smart thing and said, all right, you know, hit the brake and asked the track workers to pull him behind the barriers there.
Up the track through the field here, you see Harry Wills still continues to put on a clinic for the rest of the field. He's got about a 2-second lead. The closest competition right now, Ethan Bass. This is a view at Ethan. You can see that's what 2 seconds looks like around a lap here at Circuit de Spa Francorchamps. Ethan, of course, the driver that had that slowdown towards the end of the sprint race earlier today, forced to basically remove himself from the podium equation with that slowdown, and he's recovered quite nicely. I have to say, John, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Definitely, I think Ethan can be proud of this run.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure that he is, and much happier with the result here. And you know, like I said, the ones that, you know, where I make a mistake or I do something, you know, that you know, that it's just kind of my own greedy nature on track to do, man. You know, and I don't know how Ethan is, but I mean, that's just how I am. That kind of stuff, when I sign off and, you know, get up from the seat and all that, you know, that's the kind of stuff that kind of sticks with you. And that's the nice thing about the sprint race and how this is set up. You just flip around and you can get right back at it and shake it off pretty quick.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you know, you feel very disappointed in yourself for letting that happen, and you really just can't wait to jump back in the race car next week to kind of redeem yourself, as it were. And that's one of those situations where I'm sure Ethan, very, very lucky and happy that he had another opportunity to kind of just go out there and show, you know what, I am podium material. I do have the chance to get up there, especially with speed, and he's really continuing to show that today.
Yeah, and it's a nice confidence builder for all these guys coming out here. I mean, this is the first time that these guys are all out racing together here, and then, you know, flexing your muscle a little bit. And, you know, you've heard me refer to the practice sheet as the ego sheet. You know, this is the kind of thing that's good for the ego. You know, you can get a good finish, or, you know, and even things that, even if you're 4th, 5th, or 6th and maybe didn't quite get the finish you want, you got to feel good about the direction that your program's going, and that means you're not too far off from challenging there for wins.
Matthew Plaisance is another one of our drivers with the onboard, a real-world look at his sim setup there. You can see he's got the Fanatec F1 racing wheel all over the place there, and you have to be if you want to get your way through Eau Rouge and Radillon in any sort of thing that resembles, I would say, one whole race car with all the fenders on it, because it is one of the trickiest set of corners in all of iRacing. You saw there a couple of real-world life-size helmets there just to his
Yeah,
left. And
I
always
was looking at
fascinating.
those and thinking, man, I wonder who's or where he picked those up for. But I like the microphone. I'm thinking, man, maybe he should be in the booth here and be broadcasting. He looks like he's trying to do both. But a good run for him here early on.
Yeah, holding on to the 10th position right now. Again, one of the faster drivers that have had the opportunity to call races for with this World Series Leagues group. This is looking at Jeremy Littleton, the Canadian driver, number 31, the Ferrari, as it were, currently riding around in the 8th position. Jeremy's having a pretty good darn run for himself today. And, you know, quiet consistency. You like to see that out of a driver, especially in these GT3 cars, endurance spec. Andrew Hewson continues to close in on Dean Timms. We saw these two cars battling it out a couple laps ago. And John, this is something you'll have over the course of a 50-minute race. Some guys are faster than others, and Magnani closing in on Hewson as well.
Yeah, and this long of a run on those tires, I have to think right now, tires are playing a major role on who's getting around here quick and who's not.
And John, let's talk the folks at home through in case they're not familiar with what happens when the tires get older. Sometimes they'll start to have a push condition when you go into the corner. That's because the front tires just are really not holding on to what you want to do. You kind of have a tight condition where you almost go straight when you want to turn it. And coming off the turn, you have a loose condition where the rear tires spin, and it's really hard to go ahead and put the power down.
Yeah, and both of those conditions have different challenges. If you got where your front tires, that push that you were talking about, driver's instinct is to push harder on the brake pedal. If you push harder on the brake pedal, guess what? The back end comes out. That's where we talk about having to adjust your lines and backing corners up to where instead of, like you said, at that 150 mark, back up to the 200 mark, you know, to where you start and apply the brake. You know, the idea is to apply the same brake pressure. Just might need a little bit longer of a stopping distance to do it. Now, getting the pressure, the power down, that means that getting out of the corners, which some of these areas where you get the long stretches, you're not getting that boost out of the corner. And if someone behind you's got a little better tires and they can get back into the throttle more aggressively, they're going to catch you on these longer straightaways.
So you can see a lot of drivers continue. You got Marcelo Magnani trying to see if he can't hunt down Andrew Hewson just up the road. Andrew Hewson trying to do the exact same to Dean Timms just up the road too. And boy, Hewson kind of sliding that car through the corners, John, kind of going for maybe a four-wheel slide there, because all four of the tires just really lacking the grip that I'm sure you'd like to see out of that race car at the moment. Taking a look here at Blake Scott, trying to see if he can't catch up right there to Matthew Plaisance.
And we got battles all coming down, and look at this. I mean, there's less than a minute to go here, so that leader is going to be taking the white flag here any second, and we've got battles galore through the field.
And this is looking at our leader, Harry Wills, just up the racetrack here as he heads down into that final right-hander. You can really tell Harry's having a battle with the handling of this race car, getting extremely loose there, coming out of the right-hander.
Bass is there. And I'd have to imagine they just took the white flag here.
Yeah, they did. White flag in the air. Time is going to expire on this lap, so this will be the last time to go around the track. Bass is all the way up on the rear end of Harry Wills right here. He's going to make a look to the left side, try to see if he can't go around the outside into Lake Com. We'll see if Harry keeps the car shoved up in there. He is going to do just that. He's going to force him to go too wide through Lake Com. Both drivers, you can see, really giving each other a lot of space, but just enough space to get by. Harry forces Bass a little bit wide. You can see, John, that flash of the lights you were talking about.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there, and you know, Wills played it safe there and took that inside lane away, so he had the preferential line going into that set of turns there, and Wills has got, or excuse me, Bass is going to have to regroup here. He's got about a little over half a lap to do so, but there's another really good braking zone coming up, entering that chicane here, so he's got to get as close to that back bumper where he can pull out and try to make that pass there.
Yeah, these last couple corners, Harry Wills has had a lot of power, a lot of trouble putting the power down. You can see him continuing to wiggle that car. He's having a lot of issues with rear stability on that thing. Rear axle definitely trying to give out him in terms of overall grip and getting off the corner. I think Ethan's going to have maybe 1 or 2 more opportunities to try and see if he can't outbrake Harry, and then especially get on the throttle just a little bit earlier than him.
Well, that car is twitching all over. We'll see if Bass is close enough to capitalize and get close to him here. And like I said, coming into the chicane here, can he outbrake him getting into this corner?
Yeah, coming in to blosh him out right now. The closer it gets, the more the draft is going to help him. The faster he goes, the more overspeed he's going to have. Final outbraking opportunity before they get to that slow right-hander through the chicane here. It gets finally side by side. It's going to be all Ethan right now. Look at how much time he's going to gain coming off the corner. You see Harry. Oh, the 2 cars are going to make contact. Forces Ethan around. Harry Wills stops on the track. Oh, and look at Dean Timms. He's going to come through and play spoiler.
He comes through and wins, and Bass backs it over the line there. Wills will bring it home third. Oh my gosh.
That was
What a
7/10 of a
finish.
second between those drivers. You can see Dean. I mean, if Ethan would have put that car in reverse and gone just a little bit faster, he would have been the winner of this race. I mean, it was going to be side by side, a drag race to the finish. Further down, deeper in the field, you got Blake Scott trying to see if he can't get one more spot here, put himself into the top 10 on Matthew Plaisance. Not quite close enough to do it. This is a replay, lower right-hand corner of your screen. Man, I can't. I have never seen anything like that happen in any of my iRacing career, John, where somebody's trying to go backwards and just play spoiler. I mean, it's kind of like a Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe last year at the Food City Dirt Race in Bristol, and of course this time out, Dean Timms playing the role of Kyle Busch, just absolutely stealing the show from multiple seconds back, riding around in third just before the checkered flag flies.
Yeah, that's coming to the checkered flag, not giving each other any quarter there, and unfortunately, at least the both of them hold on for a podium. But man, how often do you see a GT3 race? One of the guys on the podium finishes driving backwards, not sliding backwards, but literally driving backwards across the start finish line. And we're going to get a replay here.
This is
Dean
riding on board. Yeah, with Dean Timms here in the Mercedes, you're going to see Ethan there come up on the left. Oh, no, yeah, riding on board with Dean here. Ethan on the right, I should say.
And you saw Ethan backing it down the front stretch there to the start finish line.
Yeah, Daniel, maybe if we could get a replay from like an aerial view to see what happened, you're going to see that Harry and Ethan were both extremely sideways there, coming out of the final corner to the checkered flag there. And I think Harry might have just gotten a little bit too sideways, made some netcode contact with Ethan, and that unfortunately spun Ethan around. But how about, again, the sportsmanship on Harry to go ahead and, after they made contact, just back out of the throttle and make sure that that Ethan was able to cross the line before him, knowing that there was maybe not the cleanest of moves.
Yeah, I think I just think that's just hard racing, really, really hard racing. And I'm sure those guys will talk through it. They may agree to disagree at the end of the day, but man, I tell you, if that's an indication what this season's going to be like, man, I can't wait for next Wednesday.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome to continue to see the rest of this season and this series play out. These guys always put on one heck of a show. This is the replay I was talking about. You can see just how much Harry is struggling for grip, and right about in 2 seconds, right there is the contact. And just a little bit of an oversteer, John, kind of a dirt tracking moment for Harry. That's Ethan going backwards. This is a view from Ethan's view. There's Dean taking the checkered flag.
Yeah, he got backed. The back end of that car came out a little bit, and the nose kind of pointed down the track and caught Ethan there. And man, what a finish. That's all I can say is just what a finish.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Of course, a big win there for Dean Timms. It's not often that you win a race like that at the last second, coming out of the final corner when you weren't even one of the first 2 drivers to get to that last corner. But man, special feeling as well. And again, all for bragging rights. Currently, here's a look at your final race results. Dean Timms is going to go ahead and play absolute spoiler, 0.7 of a second there over Ethan Bass. Harry Wilson's going to come home in third to round out the podium. Andrew Hewson going to finish in fourth. Marcelo Magnani gained 5 spots since the beginning of the race to come home in fifth position. Alex Murray going to gain 17 spots to finish in sixth. Taylor Lane up 20 spots. Jeremy Littleton going to come home in the 8th position, followed by Kyle Smith in 9th. Matthew Plaisance rounds out the top 10. Blake Scott going to come home in 11th position. Bruce Jackson, up and down race, one of the first drivers to get a little bit squirrely there, especially before they even made it up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion. He's going to come home in 12th, followed by John Casey in 13th. Nicholas Salapoudis going to come home in 14th, followed by Cristiano Malaganoni in 15th. Andrew Hewitt going to come home in 16th, followed by Aaron Beaver in 17th. Eric Papineau going to finish in 18th, followed by Braden Melling in 19th. Daniel Dennison in 20th. And James Pierce is going to come home in 21st after winning the first race on the day. Kai Dalzell looked like he had a lot of speed in that car before wrecking it about halfway through the race. He'll come home in the 22nd position. Greg Brockway is going to come home in 23rd, followed by Nick Stein in 24th. Justin Risto in 25th, followed by Jacob Schneider in 26th. Lucas Souza and Christopher Johnson round out your 28-car field. And John, it looks like we have the opportunity to speak to some drivers here. What do you say we interview our big winner, Dean Tim? Dean,
Hello.
it looked like you didn't really have a shot there at the win, but a strong podium, and then boy, coming off the last corner, what was going through your mind when you saw Ethan facing the wrong direction?
Yeah, I was a bit confused. I thought they'd already crossed the line. I thought it was like is it post-race bashing?
Celebration there.
Yeah. And I didn't realise they hadn't crossed the line and got the win. Out of nowhere, really. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I can only imagine the surprise on your face, because I was absolutely shocked that you would have the time to come across the start finish line. But boy, that's got to give you a big boost of confidence going into this next season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's some strong drivers on the grid this season, and there's a lot of drivers that have also improved from last season. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to have to really step up my game, I think.
Well, Dean, certainly look forward to seeing you hopefully continue this fast pace throughout the rest of the season. But before I let you go, who do you have to thank for your run tonight?
I'd like to thank my team, Prestanda Nomad, actually someone from an EU series, Simon Dodd, who helped with the setup, and Harry, obviously, who I helped run the league with, and and you guys, obviously, for the job you do.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dean. Congratulations on the win, and hopefully look forward to getting into the victory lane many more times this season, huh?
Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
That was Dean Tim, your race winner here today. And John, what you say we talk to the guy that finished in third place to round out the podium, Harry Wills?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Harry, this is John up in the booth. You got a copy?
I have indeed. How we doing?
I'm doing fine, man. And earlier today, I heard you had a barn burner, and not to outdo yourself, it comes down to the wire again. Man, walk me through the last couple of corners of that race.
Yeah, I mean, so from the EU, because obviously we have the EU series as well as the US, and the EU series is always a really good sort of, you get a lot of understanding of what the car's going to do before the US. I thought, right, the one thing I learned was I absolutely cooked the tyres, and I thought I'm going to take it real easy, and I saw that relative coming down. I thought, well, I'm going to put a quick lap in just so I can gauge what I've got here, and on that quick lap, he still took time out of me. I thought, I've got to go, and just fried them, absolutely destroyed them. And on that last lap, I was just hanging on to it. And I couldn't. Just the mental thought of pressing the accelerator melted the back tyres. So it was good. I didn't want it to really end like that. It was a bit naughty. I probably shouldn't have tried that hard on press day, as it's in my position. But anyway, you can't help it sometimes. You just you get into the race, and then you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. But I didn't hit him on purpose, by the way. Just put that out there.
No, I didn't think either. The back end stepped out a little bit there coming out of there, but you saw the checkered flag and you got to go for it. But did you get a chance to look at your tire wear at the end of that? What it was like?
Yeah, it was something. Not 42% left rear. So yeah, it's not very good if I'm honest.
Well,
Not good
my
at all.
next question will be is next once we get the season going, then instead of doing a fuel only stop, is that going to change your calculation on maybe taking tires for those stops?
It will do, but we obviously, because we run 60% fuel, it adds that element of you won't. I don't think you can be able to change the tires during just fuel going in the car. So it will bring that into play a little bit. I mean, the thing is, obviously, we've had a new build from iRacing last week, so a lot of people are still learning what to do. Setups aren't particularly working from last season, so a lot of people have just got to put a lot of time into getting things, getting things up and running.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of was wondering. How much time on track would you make up by putting new tires on to with the guys trying to go to kind of take it easy on them to get them to last through? And man, that's you got a week to go to kind of figure those calculations out, my friend.
I know. Well, that's it. I mean, like, a lot of people, myself included, didn't really get a lot of time to put laps in around here. So, and I know I've always driven the Mercedes, and I've driven it quite hard, and even that shocked me at just how quickly they went off. It is literally the second you break traction, the second you have that slide, you can't get it back, and it's quite reminiscent of obviously a very limited experience of V8 supercars or even NASCAR, where as soon as you have that big moment, that slide, that one, you've got to catch something or even a lock. That's it. You've got to just back it right off to let the tyre temperature come back down, and then you can go. But when it's the last 2 laps of the race, then you can't really afford to do that. You just got to get on with it. So, while I'm here, I'm just going to quickly say I'd like to genuinely thank you guys for putting on the show and doing what you do, and obviously myself and the rest of the WSL admin team, Taylor, Dean, and everybody else who worked hard to put this show together. I honestly can't say thank you enough, and I can't say thank you enough to every single driver that comes and takes part in what we do. I'll try not to hit them next time, but hey, look, it's really humbling to see it all come together, and obviously we got round 1 next week. We're a little bit thin on the ground because obviously Sebring, real Sebring is this weekend coming, and I think we've got half of the grid who've gone to that real race meeting. So a lot of those guys are actually at Sebring watching it. So hello to those chaps if they are watching this. But yeah, thank you very much for you guys for doing the work that you do, and obviously the work that's gone into this broadcast. It looks absolutely fantastic. I can't be chuffed enough with it.
Well, we really appreciate that, and thank you for putting you and all your drivers putting a great product, and it's just a pleasure to watch and call these things. So kudos all around, I would say, Harry. But anybody else, real quick, you'd like to give a shout out to for helping you along the way here?
Just everybody who puts time into this series. We've had to call on a little bit of help from some of the people, just in the preparation of it. Obviously you guys for doing what you do, fellow main admin Dean, who puts a lot of work in behind the scenes. It's a labour of love, this sort of stuff. I think when we start getting into the protests and the nitty gritty of it, when we've got to really review drivers' performances going forwards and really look at how they handle situations and whether we need to step in and advise or anything like that. You're talking serious hours of commitment to sort of give that sort of respect back to people. So just everybody who puts this together, and all of my Twisted guys, because I run Twisted Racing Team. So everybody everyone who does that, then thank you very much for those guys. And yeah, they go. Where do we go? I've got in my head it's Nordschleife next week, but that's the EU series. It's not there, and I can't even remember my own calendar. My brain's that fried after that one. Where are we going next week? We are going to Daytona. I'm all right with that one. I can do that. That's fine. It'll be a nice cool-down session after Nordschleife from the EU series. So, yeah.
Well, we'll see you next week, and good luck over in the EU series. And it's a pleasure talking to you.
You too as well, guys. Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Yep, that's Harry Wills. Got a nice podium here tonight, and it sounds like he does a little bit of everything here for this league. So, Austin, who have you caught up with?
Yeah, catching up here with Taylor Lane, driver the number 32 car. Taylor, you came home in 7th position. Really good start to your season here, especially for press day. What did you learn about your car here that you can maybe carry in to the rest of the season?
Well, I started the night in the Audi because I'm actually not doing the full season. My work schedule is a bit all over the place. I can't commit to a full season, but I'll be doing races here and there. So I started the night in the Audi, instant death. So decided to go back to something a bit more familiar in the BMW, and obviously being teammates with Dean, we race this car quite a bit. So yeah, it was good fun going from the back to the front. It was some good racing.
Yeah, we made note going through the finishing positions there. You made up 20 spots. There was some melee, especially towards the start of this race. The first couple laps were a little bit hectic, but man, you brought the car home in one piece. And talking about the rest of the season, you mentioned you can't run all of it. That's a shame because you were doing really well out there today. But are there any tracks you're hoping to come back just in time for that maybe you're looking forward to more than others?
I look forward to most of the tracks that are on the calendar. It's because I help sometimes in the background as well, so I had a bit of a say in the deciding of the track list. So most of the tracks on that list, I'm looking forward to. So hopefully I can make as many of them as possible. So
I like it.
crossed.
I was looking
Fingers
at the
crossed.
calendar, and there's quite a few bangers, as it were, on this. And I'm really excited to get this thing going. But Taylor, before I let you go, who do you have to thank for your run tonight, buddy?
Thanks to my team over at Prestanda Nomads, especially my teammate Dean for providing me a setup very quickly. Also a big shout out to you guys. The production value on the stream seems to be immensely improved over last year, and that's only thanks to you guys behind the scenes. Also a big thank you to Harry and Dean again for putting on such a good series.
Of course. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your run tonight. Very, very strong. Up 20 spots. That's incredible.
Thank you very much.
That was Taylor Laney, finished in the 7th position after starting 27th on the grid. John, this race was pretty much everything I expected it to be, and even more. I could not have anticipated the end of this thing, and just your thoughts on tonight.
Well, I think early results tell me that this is going to be an incredibly competitive series. Lots of action throughout the field. I mean, coming to that checkered flag there, I mean, how many different battles did you have through the field? This is going to be a really cool season to do here, and proud to be on board, and can't wait to see what goes down next week.
Yeah, for sure. Real quickly, I just want to thank all of our sponsors at Race Anywhere, Go for the Gap, and IMB Racewear. They're all fantastic partners, and WSL are delighted to have them back with us again for another season. On behalf of myself, Austin Belke, John Hine, and Daniel Costello, and everyone else behind the scenes, thank you so much for watching, and good night.